Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 13. The Espada. After his conversation with Isshin, Ichigo sat atop the tower overlooking the desolate Hueco Mundo. His mind raced at the possibilities of what the future held. He couldn't help but feel anxious about some of the things Isshin mentioned. His Bankai, it must be something inconceivable, Ichigo thought as he briefly wondered about the power Sosuke Isshin actually had. He shook his head in contemplation. His Reiatsu was unlike any I've felt before. Was that his or just the Hogyoku? He obviously wanted that orb to empower himself, but why? I have no doubt that he could prove more than a match for any of the hollows in Hueco Mundo or the other Shinigami. Could the Soul King or this Yhwach really be as powerful as Isshin claims? It makes sense why he would want my help. Even the Captain Commander is a foe neither one of us could easily defeat. If that was only the old man's Shikai, then I will need some kind of power boost that could match his Bankai. Distracted by his thoughts, Ichigo barely noticed Grimmjow land next to him. The blue-haired Arrancar sat down next to Ichigo and didn't say anything. After a brief silence, Ichigo acknowledged his presence. Grimmjow, you need something. White, I know you think you're doing what's best, but I don't like those Shinigami snooping around here. What's to stop them from spying on us or betraying us later? Grimmjow asked with an unhappy expression. Ichigo glanced over and shrugged. You're right to be cautious, Grimmjow. Their betrayal of the Soul Society certainly is abnormal. Though, judging by the reactions of the other captains, I doubt they're double agents. Not to mention, Isshin delivered his promise. We're all Arrancars now. He and I have had a few talks, and it's become clear to me that we need his help just as much as he needs ours. We don't need their help. With all of us united, we're strong enough on our own. You brought our kind together so that we could stand against them. They don't belong here. Just what exactly do these Shinigami captains even want? Why would they betray their own? Aren't Shinigami all concerned about honor and all that other bullshit? Grimmjow protested. Listen, Grimmjow. Sosuke Isshin is invaluable to our cause. He understands our enemy more than we do. He seeks the destruction of the Quincy's and the death of the Soul King. His reasons for being here, while vague, are at least understandable. The other two captains, Jin Ichimaru and Kanami Tusen, are the ones I don't fully trust, Ichigo explained. Grimmjow seemed to calm down slightly as a curious expression graced his features. He wants to kill the Soul King. And he wants our help to kill him. Who the hell is the Soul King anyways? The Shinigami's god, I think, though I don't really understand either. The point is, I understand why Isshin is here. The other two however have rather weak reasons for being here. If I was you, I would watch them more closely than Isshin, Ichigo replied coolly. Yeah, I see what you mean there. The silver-haired Shinigami likes eavesdropping from what I've seen. I don't like that bastard. But the blind one acts like he's better than us. He even had the nerve to talk down to me, Grimmjow said angrily. That sneaky guy, Jin Ichimaru, don't let your guard down around him, ever. As for Kanami Tusen, I wouldn't expect much deception from a man like him, but I wouldn't expect loyalty either. I will speak with both of them and draw a clear line. So it would be best if you kept your anger in check and let me handle it, Ichigo said authoritatively. Fine. I'll shut up about it. Just so long as you're not letting them try any funny business, then I'll tolerate them for now. By the way, Berrigan wanted you to come see him. He asked me to pass it along in case I ran into you, Grimmjow sighed. I imagine everyone's still adjusting to becoming Arrancars, Ichigo noted. If I was you, I'd probably make my rounds and check how everyone's doing. A lot of the former Ijukas are acting stupid, Grimmjow said with an annoyed face as he wrapped his arms around a raised knee. I suppose I should do that. I'll go see Berrigan first. By the way, how are your followers adjusting to their new bodies? Ichigo questioned casually. Grimmjow seemed uncertain about the topic. I don't see why you'd care, but they're doing fine. I talked to them a bit. They seem to like being Arrancars. We're all kin now. The more we all know and trust each other, the better. With that in mind, what are their names? Ichigo asked. Grimmjow shrugged. Sha Long, D. Roy, Yilfort, Nakim, and Edrad. Sha Long is the tall one. D. Roy has the bulky mask helmet, Yilfort is the blonde one, Nakim has the half mask, and Edrad is the buff one. Will they be ready for fighting Shinigami? The Hollow King asked as he gave Grimjow a curious stare. The blue-haired Arrancar nodded. Yeah, I'll make sure they're whipped into shape if that's what you're asking. I talked to Harabel a bit while you guys were away. She mentioned you go through a lot of trouble to train your followers. Initially I thought that was just patronizing, but it makes more sense now. You like having dependable companions. Ichigo nodded. I helped train her followers. Not as much as my 3, but I might find time to do more with them. I could help your guys out too if you'd like. Nah, I'll take care of them. It's my job, not yours, Grimjow insisted. Fair enough, so how are you adjusting to being an Arrancar, Grimjow? Ichigo asked curiously. The other Arrancar stared out into the distance. It's interesting, but yeah, I'll catch up with you later, White. Grimjow stood up and started walking away. He didn't make it very far before Ichigo responded to him. See you later, Grimjow, I'm going to go check on Barragan. Grimjow simply waved. Yeah, take care, White. You can call me Ichigo if you want. That's my real name, the orange-haired Hollow stated, causing Grimjow to raise a brow. Huh, I know you as White, so that's what I'm gonna call you. We're not exactly chummy or anything, besides if I start calling you that, people might think I'm in your little posse. Grimjow laughed. Suit yourself. Ichigo laughed as well. He left shortly afterward. After he departed, Grimjow held his head dejectedly. For someone who's proven himself stronger than me, he's awfully friendly. I mean, I know we're working together and all, but why does he treat me like I'm his equal most of the time? Weird. Inside Las Noches. After a short exploration of Las Noches, Ichigo finally locked onto Barragan's spiritual signature and found the former king in one of the several throne rooms. Barragan was sitting on it examining his axe with curiosity. It was evident to Ichigo that its new sealed shape interested him. Upon entering the room, Barragan's followers all greeted him promptly. Hi King White, is there something you needed? Ggio asked immediately. Ichigo walked inside, and caught Barragan's stern gaze before glancing back at Ggio. I wanted to speak with Barragan. By the way, how are all of you adjusting? Ggio bowed his head respectfully. As you wish, High King White, we are doing well, I suppose. I feel like this new body perfectly represents my beauty. A buff, but strangely effeminate Arrancar announced cheerily as he glided across the room and bowed to Ichigo. I feel much stronger than before. A buff Arrancar with red tribal paint covering his body announced happily. I never did learn your names, care to introduce yourselves? Ichigo asked curiously. The name's Charlotte Kuhlhorn. The effeminate Arrancar winked. Aburama Redder, royal bodyguard of King Barragan, the red-marked Arrancar stated. Walking over from Barragan's throne, the other 4 followers joined the conversation. The slim long-haired blonde one spoke next. Findor Callius, royal bodyguard, it is a pleasure to formally introduce myself to you. The really big one with green face markings and a jaw mask fragment nodded. I'm Shoneng Puao, King Barragan's enforcer, everyone just calls me Puao. I'm Nerg, royal bodyguard of the king, one of the others said. His mask fragment was shaped like a tusked helmet of some sort. The final arrival was a tall, muscular gray-haired man with a jaw mask fragment. His hair was in some kind of spiky ponytail and he had a noticeable scar covering his face, much to Ichigo's curiosity. I'm Tiburon Martillo, King Barragan's enforcer, the final arrival stated. Ichigo examined his scar and looked at him curiously. Got a few scars along the way, I see. The Arrancar nodded somewhat bitterly. Yes, Tia Harabel inflicted the one on my face. It's your own fault for challenging a Vasto Lord's power. Ggio shook his head amused. The Arrancar grimaced angrily. Shut up, Ggio. I hope you can put that kind of grudge behind you, Ichigo threatened Martillo. The sheer lethality in his voice caused the gray-haired Arrancar to immediately bow in subservience. Oh, of course, High King, I will not make an issue of it. I am no match for the likes of you or Harabel. Good, Ichigo nodded before turning his eyes back on Ggio. The former saber-tooth introduced himself last. Ggio Vega, emissary, advisor, and royal guard of King Barragan. Well, it's nice to officially meet all of you. As you may or may not know, My actual name is Ichigo Kurosaki. Though you're free to call me whatever you'd prefer. Ichigo nodded as he made his way past the group to Baragon himself. The former king was surprisingly quiet as he watched the scene with a strange curiosity. Right as Ichigo reached him, the Arrancar grunted in acknowledgement. It is good you came immediately, I wanted to speak with you. We never really got the chance after that Shinigami appeared. Baragon's followers all watched the two powerful hollows with an evident anticipation, but were let down as the old man waved his hand. Go find yourselves living arrangements, White and I will speak in private. Yes, your majesty, they all said in unison. It was surprisingly in sync, which led Ichigo to assume that they were used to doing it. After the lesser hollows all left, Ichigo stared at Baragon waiting for him to speak. The older man sighed heavily. We have much to discuss, White. Let me guess, you don't approve of the Shinigami here. Well, they're not going away anytime soon. We'll need them, like it or not, Ichigo explained. Baragon seemed annoyed by Ichigo jumping to conclusions and grunted in disapproval. No, that is not what I wanted to speak to you about. I have already come to terms with our predicament. The only reason I have accepted it is because you hold the leash on those Shinigami. It better stay that way. Now back to the reason why I called you here. It concerns this palace. Las Noches. Come to think of it, I don't know anything about this place, Ichigo noted. The former king nodded. Yes, but as the new ruler, you should be aware of its origins and secrets. You have proven your superior might. As hollows, that gives you the right to rule over me. As such, I will entrust you with the knowledge of Hueco Mundo's history. All right, then how about you start by telling me how this place was built, Ichigo nodded. The former rulers of Las Noches before myself were Arrancars. They ruled here long before I took residence in Las Noches, Baragon began. Ichigo's eyes widened with disbelief. I thought you've always ruled here. How far back does this go? Thousands of years, but as the story goes, Las Noches was built by the first king of Hueco Mundo. In those days, hollows were far more numerous than they are today. Vasto lords ruled every corner of this desert, and the mightiest of their kind was the king himself. He was a hollow unlike any other. None know of how it happened, but he became the very first Arrancar. It gave him even greater power than the Vasto lords that rivaled him, and one by one he subdued them all until he finally conquered all of Hueco Mundo. The king sought the same thing you do, to challenge the Shinigami who arrogantly slew us as they pleased, the older man continued. Ichigo was fascinated by the story, so the original king wanted the same thing. What happened to him and the other hollows? Over the course of his rule, he shared the secrets of how to become an Arrancar with his underlings. One by one they transformed and grew in power until at last, all of them were like the king himself. Uniting the 9 strongest hollows under his command, they created an elite faction of 10 called the Espada. They were all Vasto lords who became Arrancars. With them and the legions they commanded under his heel, the first king created this mighty palace, Luna Palacio de las Noches Eternas. Moon Palace of the Everlasting Nights. To the common hollows, it is simply known as Las Noches. The king built this place as a sanctuary for his army. It stands as a monument to his might and influence over Hueco Mundo, Baragon said almost admirably. I imagine so. This palace is enormous. His army must have been colossal. Though these Espada sound pretty formidable. Why aren't they still around? Ichigo said interested. I won't pretend to know the why or the how, but the king was later slain by a powerful band of Shinigami that would eventually become their Gote 13, Baragon said angrily. Ichigo shared Baragon's resentment as he gritted his teeth. How did they manage to defeat the first king if he was so powerful? I don't know, but I do know that a title that was given to the king's slayer. They called this Shinigami the Kenpachi, Baragon replied. Kenpachi. Ichigo's eyes widened as he remembered a brief flash of the eye patch captain he fought as a Jillian and later a Vasto lord. He vaguely recalled that Shinigami being referred to as Kenpachi. I learned from the former king that it is a title given to the greatest swordsman of the Shinigami. Though I don't know if the Shinigami that slew the first king still lives. It was thousands of years ago, Baragon elaborated further. Ichigo frowned. Was this warrior Yamamoto? He's the strongest and oldest Shinigami I've ever seen. That is the only Shinigami I know by name, and no. I know that he is not the first Kenpachi. According to the information I've gathered over the centuries, there has in fact been several Shinigami with that title, Baragon clarified. If there has been more than one Kenpachi, then it's probably safe to assume this warrior is long dead, Ichigo concluded. Baragon glared angrily. You are likely correct, but it is indeed a shame. I would take great pleasure in avenging the first king. So what happened to the Espada after the Kenpachi killed the first king? You mentioned the former king told you all of this, Ichigo asked. After his death, the survivors retreated and fought over the vacuum of power left behind. Their infighting ripped Hawako Mundo asunder and caused more destruction than our own hated enemies could ever hope to. Without a strong leader to maintain order, the Espada clashed in a civil war. The aftermath left them weakened, and eventually the Shinigami managed to purge the rest of the Espada in the years that followed. They succeeded in killing off all of them, except one. The only survivor was the Segunda Espada. Though powerful, he paled in comparison to the first king, the Cerro Espada. He assumed the title of king by default according to his account, Baragon said distantly. Ichigo cocked his head confused. So then, you already knew what Arrancars were before I brought Stark and Lilinet with me. Interesting. So how did you and this surviving Espada meet? The first time I met him was after a victory against one of my rivals. He sensed our battle and came to watch. After I slew my rival, he tried to recruit me, but failed. I had no interest in being subservient to anyone. He respected that about me, and offered me the right to challenge him for the throne. Agreeing to his offer, I took my army to seize Las Noches for myself. I succeeded obviously, but lost my entire army in the process. That is how I came to be the king, Baragon answered. He killed your entire army? Ichigo asked, somewhat surprised. Baragon nodded. They died in the crossfire between us. Those that didn't, fled. The former king is the only foe I've ever faced besides you that gave me a true challenge. Did you kill him after winning? When exactly did he tell you all of this stuff? Ichigo wondered. Baragon shook his head. Not exactly. After our long battle, I defeated him, and he surrendered. I was going to finish him off, until he started talking about my potential as an Arrancar. The former king recognized my superior power and claimed I was worthy to succeed him as king. After doing so, he thanked me for freeing him. Freeing him? How did you free him? Ichigo wondered, not fully understanding the idea. He said he would only abandon his post in Las Noches if a stronger hollow were to take his place. Apparently I was the greatest Vasto Lord he had seen since the days of the first king. That was also when he explained the origins of Las Noches and the Espada to me. After he told me about the schism of Hawako Mundo and the death of the first king, the former king stated that he wanted to get revenge against the Shinigami. He claimed that Las Noches' protection was the only thing keeping him from doing so. Before he left, he asked me to gather the strongest hollows and recreate the Espada should he fail. Afterward, he left through a garganta and I never saw him again. Baragon said with deep reconciliation. What was his name, the former king I mean? Ichigo asked curiously. His name was Arturo Plateado. He was rather arrogant as you could imagine, but he commanded great power. If a hollow like him was only third ranked amongst the Espada, then they must have been supremely powerful as a whole, Baragon replied. So Arturo went to avenge the rest of the Espada, and he left you in charge of Las Noches since you were more powerful than he was. Is that what led you to try and conquer Hawako Mundo? Ichigo confirmed. Baragon nodded. Precisely, though, I failed in my attempts to do so. I tried to conquer Hawako Mundo, and force weaker hollows into my army. Ejukas were easy to recruit, but many of the Vasto Lords I slew were those that refused to serve me. I was angered that despite my superior might, the lesser Vasto Lords would not yield to my authority. They would rather die pointlessly or flee to the far corners of Hawako Mundo. I eventually gave up on trying to rekindle the first king's legacy. So then you simply saw me as another power-hungry Vasto Lord. Ichigo began to realize as he felt more empathy for Baragon than he ever expected to. Yes, when I first saw you, I knew that you would eventually become a Vasto Lord. Your power was already great as an Ejuka. I hoped to recruit you into my army before then, so that you would not end up like the other Vasto Lords who challenged me. I failed in that regard, and you escaped. I knew that day that you and I would eventually face each other again. Though to my surprise, you were able to unite Vasto lords against me, succeeding where I failed. Then you took my throne. I hated you for that, Berrigan admitted. Ichigo stared at him, shocked by the man's truthful statement. He said nothing and simply let Berrigan continue. However, after seeing the way you gathered all of these powerful hollows under one banner, I began to understand what it truly meant to be the king of the hollows. They all respect you, even my own followers. Even I do, despite all that's happened. The moment you spared my life, I began to realize what you had that I lacked. You have charisma, empathy, and above all your reign stands for something greater than yourself. I often wonder what the first king, Zangetsu, would have been like to unite all hollows under his rule. Now I realize, he was like you. It is for that reason that I will continue to follow you. Berrigan finally finished his explanation. Ichigo was speechless from Berrigan's story and simply stared dumbfounded. After a long awkward silence, Ichigo finally shook his head disbelievingly. Did you just say that the first king's name was Zangetsu? Ichigo gasped in pure disbelief. Berrigan nodded. Yes, that was his name according to Arturo. Without warning, Ichigo drew his sword and held it up for Berrigan to see. This is my Zanpakuto, and its name is Zangetsu. The old Arrancar jaw dropped at Ichigo's remark. Absurd. How is that possible? I don't know, Ichigo said, shaking his head. Berrigan's non-scarred eye widened considerably. He seemed truly speechless, probably for the first time in his life. Ichigo slowly sheathed his blade and nodded his head respectfully. Thanks for telling me all of this, Berrigan, it really puts things in perspective. Now I have even more of a reason to defeat the Shinigami. I need time to reflect on this, if you would excuse me, Berrigan stated as he stood up and began to leave. I should probably get going anyways. Might I suggest you help train your followers if you get bored, Ichigo requested before heading in the opposite direction. Berrigan stopped in his tracks and contemplated deeply on the meaning of the revelation. What could that possibly mean? How could his Zanpakuto be named after the first king? Aren't they an extension of one's soul? Could it be possible he is the first king incarnate? This is unprecedented. Before Ichigo could leave the room, Berrigan called out to him, Hi King White, this conversation should stay between you and me. Ichigo turned back briefly and nodded. It will, thanks again for telling me. As Ichigo took his leave, the orange-haired Arrancar shook his head. Zangetsu. The first king of the hollows was named Zangetsu. What does that make me? The blade is a part of me, but am I truly like the original king of the hollows? I wonder what the Shinigami thought when I told them I was the king. The captain commander seemed enraged when I mentioned it. Though I obviously don't look like the first king, or they would have recognized me, right? Damn, if this first Kenpachi killed the original Hollow King, then what kind of shape am I in to take them on again? I am clearly not powerful enough. I must become stronger. Several minutes passed in reflective silence as Ichigo wandered down the massive hallways of Las Noches, aimlessly lost in thought. Too distracted by his concerns, Ichigo didn't realize where he was going until he knocked someone over by accident. Hey, watch it you, oh King White, sorry for yelling at you, the individual said apologetically. Ichigo took a closer look and noticed it was a pink-haired man with glasses. He smiled at Ichigo as if thrilled to see him. It's an honor to be knocked down by you. I didn't even sense you walking down the hall. Trying to ambush me, huh? Ichigo tried to recognize the man as he cocked his head curiously. I'm not quite sure I remember, but you were that butterfly Ajuka, right? I'm Shielaporo Grants, and may I say, thank you for including me in your army, King White. I promise to be extremely useful in our war against those wretched Quincy's and abysmal Shinigami. If you need anything, just let me know. He bowed his head very gracefully. Well, aren't you eager? Ichigo said, amused. The pink-haired man grinned as he slicked his hair back. Well, my older brother is one of Grimjow's followers, but I on the other hand was rooting for you from the start. Your mastery of combat is quite a sight to see, though I find your intellect and charisma to be awe-inspiring. Oh, look at me rambling like some kind of giddy fan. Thanks, I guess, Ichigo said as he rose a brow somewhat uncertainly. This man was clearly trying to get on his good side. So what can you do exactly? Are you good at fighting? Ichigo asked. Zale laughed maniacally. Oh, but of course I am. Though my true passion is science and research, I would gladly analyze and dissect any Shinigami or Quincy specimens if we were to capture some. Well, since you seem to enjoy that kind of stuff, then sure. Your first assignment is to figure out what the deal with this blood on my clothes is, Ichigo pointed. Zale reached out and was about to touch it before Ichigo grabbed his wrist. The pink-haired Arrancar gave him a strange grin as he did so. The Hollow King stared intently. Be careful touching it. One of the Quincy women I encountered seemed to think it would affect me somehow if she covered me in her blood. Sounds kinky. Zale laughed. Well then, perhaps you could hand over that jacket and allow me to do some research. I believe I can set up a lab somewhere around here. Ichigo nodded as he removed his upper garments and carefully folded it to cover the bloodied parts. He handed it to Zale. Feel free to use whatever you need to figure out what we're dealing with. You have my permission to make a lab if you want. I would like an update as soon as possible. Of course, King White. Zale said excitedly as he took the folded jacket and examined it with anticipation. He glanced down at Ichigo's white hakama pants. Is there any blood on the rest of your clothes as well? The more samples I have, the better it would. I think you have more than enough, Ichigo dissuaded as he began to walk away. Zale nodded in acceptance. Very well, I will begin at once. Farewell, Your Majesty. I look forward to sharing my findings with you. With that, the pink-haired man left sprinting down the hallway like an excited child. Ichigo couldn't help but chuckle at his enthusiasm, which helped to distract his mind from the shocking revelations from Baragon. He continued down the hallway, making his way into a grand chamber. Upon entering, he noticed many of the new Arrancars were all gathered around discussing their opinions on recent events. The moment they spotted Ichigo, the entire room went silent. Ichigo, where's your shirt? Mainoli exclaimed with a crimson face. Her reaction seemed to mark him with a bunch of heavy stares from the room's inhabitants. He looked at them curiously. Why's everyone staring at me like that? Lolly's eyes widened. Aren't you going to say something? What's up? Ichigo waved nonchalantly as he made his way into the room. With each step closer, he made several of the girls back away shyly. Harabelle had an intense, silent reaction as she eyed him up and down. The calm Arrancar tilted her head curiously. Do we not have to wear tops around here? Well, the women don't, a tall lanky Arrancar with black hair snickered. Everyone seemed to ignore his comment minus Harabelle, who gave him a stern glare. Oh sorry, I gave my jacket to Zale, the pink-haired guy, so he could examine the Quincy blood on it, Ichigo explained. That seems convenient. You certainly do know how to make an entrance. A foxy laugh came from behind the group. Everyone turned their attention towards it and spotted Jin Ichimaru grinning. Ichigo cocked his head at Jin curiously. How are you liking Hueco Mundo, Jin? It's quite nice, though Las Noches could certainly use some entertainment and decorations, the foxy captain chuckled. Maybe it does need some renovation. This place doesn't look like it's been lived in for centuries, Ichigo said in agreement. Hey, Ichigo, how does my new body look? You never told us all what you thought, Mila Rose asked seductively as she stuck a pose. Her revealing attire clearly showed quite a few curves. Ichigo looked at her surprised. Where did you get that outfit? The new Arrancar woman had quite a revealing top as well as a short white skirt and matching boots. Her green eyes lit up with anticipation. Looks good, doesn't it? Apache scoffed at it. What's with that get-up? Why would Ichigo like that? Sung Sun shook her head at the woman. It looks ungraceful and shameless, so it's definitely a match for you, Mila Rose. What did you just say? You still look like a snake to me, Sung Sun. The former lioness sassed back. Sung Sun covered her mouth and narrowed her eyes. Yes, but snakes are quite exotic and beautiful as well as deadly. Your face is deadly, deadly ugly. Mila Rose taunted. What a crude comment. You truly lack etiquette and subtlety, Mila Rose, Sung Sun giggled. Well, if you want my opinion, you both turned out great, Ichigo complimented, immediately ending their argument. Harabelle's eyes widened slightly. He thinks they look good. He mentioned liking my appearance, but he seems to like theirs as well. Both women seemed shocked by his comment as if not expecting it. Sung Sun immediately covered her face and looked away. Mila Rose gawked at him with a slight gleam in her eyes. You really think so? What about us, Ichigo? Lolly demanded as she pushed Mila Rose aside. Mainoli followed her and both struck a pose back to back in front of their master. Ichigo laughed. Impressive. You two certainly had the most unexpected transformations. Lolly's one visible eye widened as she nodded. Damn right. Did you expect anything less? Well, I'm glad you all like being Arrancars, but don't think that means your training has stopped. Just because you're all cute now, doesn't mean I'm going to go easy on you, Ichigo stated. His comment caused most of the girls to visibly react in some way. Harabelle on the other hand cocked her head. Cute. What's that? Well, it means something looks innocent and pleasant, mistress, Sung-sun clarified. Her cheeks were covered by a sleeve for some reason, much to Ichigo's curiosity. The former Vasto Lord stared at Ichigo for a moment. That description obviously doesn't match me. Well, maybe not, but you've always been appealing, Harabelle, Ichigo said approvingly. Her eyes shot open as she was taken aback by his comment. Harabelle quickly regained her composure and stared at Ichigo silently, appealing. Does he like my appearance or not? He's right, mistress, you're a symbol of beauty and power in Hueco Mundo, Sung-sun added. Her comment seemed to alleviate Harabelle's doubt, but now the blonde couldn't help but feel flushed by the remark. Beauty. Does he think that about me? No, he never specified beauty specifically. I shouldn't jump to conclusions, she thought. The female Arrancar couldn't quite explain why, but the issue seemed to matter more to her than it should have. So who's the most beautiful Arrancar? Ichigo Kurosaki. Jin cut into the conversation with a foxy, mischievous grin. That one comment immediately caused all of the surrounding women to stare at Ichigo intently. Several others in the room immediately made their way closer to watch the conversation. Ichigo rubbed the back of his head for a moment. Well, this ought to be good, Neutra cackled. Yeah, who is the prettiest? Lolly demanded almost threateningly. Manali's face was flustered as she looked away. You girls shouldn't pressure Ichigo like that. The way we look isn't really that important. Apache seemed less hostile about it than Lolly, but stared with unrestrained curiosity. What's your idea of pretty anyways, Ichigo? Definitely not you. Mila Rose shook her head. You don't have the curves I do. Why does that matter? Apache deadpanned with a furious look on her face. Ichigo is my master, not yours. Technically he is everyone's master now, though I think Mila Rose is saying that you're flat, Apache, Sung-sun giggled. What? No, I'm not. She's just bulky and muscular. Apache pointed at Mila Rose. The former lioness laughed at her. Muscular. Is that what you think these are? The tomboyish Arrancar cracked her fists angrily. Oh, get over yourself, Mila Rose. I could still kick your ass in a fight. Harabelle chose that perfect moment to step forward as she spoke up calmly. What are you all fussing about anyways? What sort of contest is this? Many of the female Ajukas stared at Harabelle's physique. It was clear that they felt intimidated as the woman crossed her arms. Beauty isn't something we should be concerned with as hollows. Easy for you to say, mistress, you're the one with the perfect body, Mila Rose thought. Many of the other women clearly had the same train of thought. Anyways, Ichigo said slowly to break the awkward silence. Before Ichigo could move past the awkward topic, an arrogant Arrancar rekindled it. What are all of you women bickering over anyways? It's pretty annoying if you ask me. Everyone turned their attention to an effeminate Arrancar with short black hair. He had a hand on his hips and a condescending look directed at the group of female Arrancars. What did you just say? I'll kill you bastard, Lolly growled. Before she or any of the women could pounce on the man, Ichigo spoke. Who are you again? Ichigo asked. His remark slightly shattered the other hollow's pride, but it didn't take long for him to recover. The effeminate hollow smiled proudly. Lupi Antenor. By the way, why do they all call you Ichigo? Ichigo Kurosaki is my real name. White is just what other hollows have always called me, Ichigo answered. Lupi nodded. I see, how interesting. Do you mind if I call you by that? Go ahead, Lupi, Ichigo nodded. The other Arrancar beamed proudly. I hope to prove my elite status to you in the days to come. What's with this guy kissing ass all of a sudden? You think you're better than us? Mainoli crossed her arms. You don't look that tough to me, you're going to regret butting in, asshole. There ain't nothing elite about you, Lolly said rudely to Lupi. The short black-haired Arrancar glared at them. Appearances can be deceiving, I'm probably more than a match for all of you and clearly more attractive. Like High King White and Harabel here. I'm both beautiful and powerful. Well, at least he has the common sense not to talk down to Harabel. Ichigo thought, slightly amused by the effeminate Arrancar's antics. Stark, who had been lying on a couch nearby, looked over lazily. What's with all that noise over there? I'm trying to sleep here. Then get a room, Stark. Lillinet badgered him, annoyed, though she seemed far more interested in the conversation than her male counterpart. She wasn't fully used to seeing this kind of social interaction and was watching it intently. Harabel glanced over at Ichigo, gauging his reaction. White seems to have a lot of patience for other hollows. I'm surprised he didn't kill Luffy outright for talking down to them. How curious. I guess he doesn't feel the need to boast or consolidate authority given all that he's achieved. Get real, dude, you're nothing like Ichigo or Harabel. Mainoli retorted, annoyed. Apache gritted her teeth. How dare you compare yourself to Ichigo? Relax, girls, I'm sure he meant it as a joke, Ichigo said, hoping to ease their angered moods. Yeah, right, he's acting like he's better than us, Lolly said angrily. Speaking of appearances, Jin's voice sounded again. I couldn't help but notice the strange way many of you dress. Mainoli cocked her head at him uncertainly. What do you mean, Shinigami? Yeah, what's wrong about the way we dress? Apache half demanded. Well, Hueco Mundo is an interesting place, where the guys dress like girls and the girls dress like guys, Jin chuckled. His comment caused most of the room to examine their attire doubtfully. Many didn't exactly comprehend what he was saying. My attire perfectly suits me, Luffy boasted. Jin Ichimaru nodded in response. It certainly does. You are proud and beautiful, and those female clothes are perfect for you. These aren't female clothes, those are though. Luffy pointed at Mila Rose and Sung Sun, annoyed. I don't dress like a guy. Right, everyone? Apache protested as she directed a mean glare at Jin. Well, now that he mentions it, you're definitely wearing the same kind of pants that Ichigo is, Sung Sun pointed. So, you say that like it's a bad thing. I'd wear Ichigo's pants, Apache countered. Would you now? How shameless, Apache, Sung Sun teased. Apache's face went scarlet as she realized how her statement might have been heard. She shyly glanced back and briefly made eye contact with Ichigo before turning away, blushing madly. I didn't mean it like that, Ichigo. Backing off already. She's so skittish sometimes, Lolly shook her head. Lolly crossed her arms at Jin and grinned smugly. I already know I look good, right, Ichigo? Right, he nodded, halfway amused by the various reactions from the Arrancars in the room. Mainoli examined her attire and looked between Jin and Ichigo. What I'm wearing looks good, right? I mean, I guess it's not as revealing as Mila Rose or Lolly's clothes. Is that good or bad? Well, Ichigo has been catching a few glances at you when you weren't looking, Jin smiled wickedly. The former Scorpion Ijuka immediately gawked at Ichigo. Really? You have? What? Ichigo questioned. He shook his head at Jin. Is this guy trying to stir drama up already? We really need to get off this topic before things become more awkward. Sung Sun covered her mouth with a sleeve and eyed Jin doubtfully. I didn't see anything like that. You certainly have an overactive imagination, Shinigami. Jin shrugged. I would imagine you didn't see it. You've been staring quite contentedly at Ichigo this whole time. There's no telling what your imagination was up to. The former snake uncharacteristically got angry. I was doing no such thing, Shinigami. I wonder if he's really that observant or if he's just messing with her. Ichigo thought uncertainly. You never did pick who you liked the most, Ichigo. Jin redirected the conversation. The orange-haired hollow immediately sent a glare towards the foxy Shinigami. Damn bastard. How the hell am I going to get out of this now? Though I wonder, which one is the prettiest? I mean, they all look attractive, but is that really important? I'm getting tired of hearing this shit. Obviously, King White has more important things to do, rather than hear all you annoying bitches talking about who looks the best. You should be more concerned with who's the strongest. Neutra hissed. Screw you, Neutra. Mila Rose growled. Who are you calling a bitch? Luffy demanded. The lanky Arrancar cracked his neck and grinned evilly. If you say one more word to me, I'll butcher you. How do you like being an Arrancar, Neutra? Ichigo asked. The Hollow King couldn't help but feel relieved by Neutra's distracting presence. Thank heaven that guy was here. Jin had me cornered there for a moment. The tall Arrancar shrugged. It's fine, but I'm ready to start killing. When do we get to do that? After we finish making everyone Arrancars, we're going to train the army and come up with a strategy to topple our enemies. Though we're not doing anything else tonight, Ichigo explained. Well, if this bullshit is the only thing going on right now, then I'm out of here. By the way, King White, do you care where we live in this palace? Neutra asked. No, I don't mind, Neutra. You can sleep in whatever room's available. Maybe later we'll renovate Las Noches and get everyone a nice den, Ichigo replied. Alright, come find me whenever training starts, the tall Arrancar stated as he took his leave. Ichigo nodded in response. After he was gone, Ichigo saw his opportunity to leave. Well, anyways, I should really be on my way, and Ichigo started but immediately felt something on his back. During this time, an energetic Lilynette chose to jump onto his back. She wrapped her arms around his neck and quickly sat on his shoulders. Ha! I ambushed you, Ichigo. Good job, Ichigo chuckled. Guess I'm not going anywhere, Ichigo sighed internally. Stark, who was still lounging further away, stood up and made his way over. He cocked his head at Lilynette curiously. What are you doing to Ichigo's hair? The young blonde was playing with Ichigo's hair now with an amused look on her face. Your hair is so colorful, Ichigo. Gah! She's acting like a dumb kid, Lolly huffed in annoyance. You should let me braid your hair, Lilynette suggested excitedly as she ignored the obviously angry glares from several nearby Arrancars. Enraged by Lilynette's actions, Apache growled, get off of him. Ichigo watched surprised as Apache charged over and kicked Lilynette off his shoulders. The hot-headed Arrancar girl glared at Apache angrily as she leapt to her feet. Hey, what's the big idea, Apache? Don't mess with him like that, she commanded. Why not? It didn't seem to be bothering him, Lilynette said confused. Stark simply shook his head and sighed. Sorry if she's bothering you, Ichigo. It's okay, Stark. Lilynette is just excited right now. I understand completely, Ichigo said reassuringly. The blonde girl beamed happily at his statement before turning to the crowd. Ichigo lets me do it, because he likes me. What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying he doesn't like us? Apache growled. Stark face-palmed at Lilynette's comment. She didn't mean it like that, but that's how it sounded. Oh geez, Lilynette, you're a handful sometimes. What's your problem? Lilynette asked bluntly, causing several of the other girls to glare at her as well. Seeing as this was the perfect time to intervene, Stark pulled the blonde girl away. Come on, Lilynette, let's go find a place to crash. I'll catch up with you later, Ichigo. The man gave a curt nod to Ichigo before dragging away Lilynette. After they were gone, Mila Rose started laughing at Apache's flustered face. Haha, what are you so worked up for? Well, if you ask me, it would seem that she was seething with jealousy, Sung Sun cut in with an amused tone. She had her mouth covered by her coat sleeve and a pair of condescending eyes focused on Apache. The tomboyish Arrancar's eyes widened horrified as she glanced back at Sung Sun flustered. You want a piece of me too? Well, I should really be on my way as well, Ichigo said as he made his way for an exit. Ichigo. Nell's voice sounded from across the room. Everyone looked up briefly as she ran over and embraced him in a tight hug. He looked at her surprised by the action. What are you doing, Nell? Hugging you, of course, she stated as she squeezed him harder. Hey, what's the big idea? He obviously doesn't want you grabbing him like that. Lolly piped up annoyed as she peeled Nell off of Ichigo. Oh, sorry, Nell said as she let go of the orange-haired king. She smiled at him happily. This is amazing, there's so many Arrancars now and we are all living in Las Noches together. Apache, Lolly, and Mainoli all had a slight dislike for Nell after her past battle with Ichigo. They all defensively tried to get between him and Nell. Lolly hissed at the turquoise-haired Arrancar. Don't think we've forgotten what you did to him. Yeah, how's about you back away from him? The fact that Ichigo became an Arrancar has nothing to do with you, Mainoli added. Nalil backed away feeling slightly offended by their hostility. She frowned as she remembered the past excursion with Ichigo and how she almost got the Ajukas killed. The woman nodded apologetically. I am truly sorry for what happened then. Believe me, I would take it back if I could. What did happen? Harabelle interjected as she walked over. It doesn't matter, you girls should give Nell a chance. That whole mess is in the past. Ichigo spoke seriously for the first time since entering the room. I've already forgiven her, and she's more than welcome to come near me if she chooses. But, Ichigo. Apache shook her head. She's one of us now, Ichigo concluded. Nell stared at him, genuinely touched by his defense. The turquoise-haired Arrancar smiled weakly. I promise to make it up to you, Ichigo. Don't worry about it, Nalil, I'm glad you're with us. Ichigo said with a comforting voice. Unable to resist the surging emotions spurred by his remark, Nell charged past Ichigo's former Ijukas and embraced him in another hug. This time she rested her head against his bare chest. Her face seemed different than it was before, and Ichigo had a hard time understanding what she was feeling. After a moment of standing there, Ichigo hugged her back and smiled. It's okay, Nell, you should get some rest. We all should. She broke the hug and looked up at him with a distant face. Good night, Ichigo. Afterward, the woman departed, leaving 5 former Ijukas and Harabelle all staring at Ichigo with various expressions. Ichigo looked over their faces curiously. What's wrong, girls? And nothing, Apache said sourly as she looked away. Harabelle's face was one of curiosity more than anything. She gave Ichigo an uncertain look. She's the one who healed you a long time ago, right? I didn't realize you two had a bond like that. Jin walked over towards the group again and nodded. Well, she's certainly in the lead for Ichigo's favor. Many of the female Arrancars glared at Ichigo incredulously as if believing the statement immediately. The Hollow King looked over at Jin. What have you done? Damn you, Jin. Deciding he had no choice but to flee the room, Ichigo laughed awkwardly. Well, I should really go see how Wunderweiss is doing, later girls. Without even hesitating, he left via Sonido before any of them could say anything. After he was gone, Harabelle eyed Jin suspiciously. Are you implying that he prefers her company over ours? Bullshit, Apache growled. We've been traveling with Ichigo for ages. I don't believe that. She's delusional if she thinks she's closer to Ichigo than we are. The foxy Shinigami gave a knowing grin as he exited the room. Well, I guess you'll never know for sure, but Ichigo certainly liked her enough to hug back. As he made his way out the door, Jin smiled mischievously. I think I've discovered my new favorite pastime here. Las Noches, Ichigo, X. After a swift escape from the awkwardness created by Jin Ichimaru, Ichigo let out a sigh of relief. If the previous conversations were anything to base him off, Ichigo knew that Jin was a crafty person. He never even got a chance to question the Shinigami. White is here, a voice sounded approvingly, catching Ichigo's attention. He glanced over and noticed Konami standing there next to Wunderweiss. Ichigo was surprised to see them, but figured he must have instinctively located them during his escape. Konami glanced up but said nothing as Wunderweiss walked over and greeted Ichigo. How are you, King White? How are you adjusting to being an Arrancar, Wunderweiss? Is Las Noches to your liking? Ichigo asked. The blonde nodded happily. I'm happy to be around others. I think Huller likes it here too. Ichigo was surprised by the former Vasto Lord referring to himself in first person. I see your speech has improved. That's good, Ichigo said approvingly. I have been helping him to understand speech. He has taken a strange liking to me, Konami spoke up for the first time. Wunderweiss smiled at his statement. Konami is nice. He helps me understand. That's good to hear. I'm glad to see some of you are getting along, Ichigo replied. Chusen nodded his head. Those with pure intentions are typically drawn to one another. He and I are more alike than I expected. You mentioned justice before, against the Soul Society. I am curious about that. I still don't understand why you would betray them, Ichigo said as he read Konami's reaction. The blind Shinigami appeared somewhat surprised by his question. I suspect that question is out of suspicion, but out of respect for you I will answer it. The Soul Society is very corrupt. I don't know if you recall much of what you saw while you were there, but a great disparity exists between the Seraiti and the outer Rukongai districts. The Shinigami of the Gote 13 work for the greater good of the Soul Society, but they are an aristocratic, elitist organization. How so? Ichigo replied. Konami faced him. They like to spy on and control the masses. They insist on enforcing balance to the world. but I often wondered if that was simply an excuse. They are nothing more than a ruthless organization of killers who rule the Soul Society under the guise of being protectors. The Gote 13 cares nothing for morality, they care nothing for justice or for the people that die needlessly for their cause. They allow ruthless murderers like Kenpachi Zaraki and Mayuri Kuratsuchi to be captains, and worst of all was Central 46. A pathetic, cowardly group of men who thought they had the right to dictate what is acceptable in this world. They belong in hell along with all of the Shinigami. I am happy to part ways with them. Kenpachi Zaraki, the man with the eye patch, right? Ichigo demanded. Konami's features tensed. Yes, he is more of a monster than any hollow I have ever seen. He cares about nothing except fighting and killing. At least you fight for a reason. Wunderweiss says you believe in protecting your kind. Kenpachi, I will break that title and anyone who carries it. You haven't seen a real monster yet. Ichigo spat full of hatred. Why did you become a Shinigami in the first place if you hated them? Wunderweiss cut into the conversation confused. Ichigo glanced over at Konami curiously as he wondered that very same question. The blind man turned towards the blonde. I was born blind, I have never seen light. Yet despite my lack of sight, I can see more than others. I knew from a young age that the Shinigami were corrupt. Yet countless people from the district I lived in aspired to join their ranks. They were like moths drawn to a flame. I became a Shinigami because I had to. For a friend. I don't understand, Wunderweiss said, somewhat distraught. I seek to enforce justice because the Shinigami have never known it. They care next to nothing about the suffering of the outer districts. The one I was born in was a slum where the Shinigami rarely visited. Poverty and despair run rampant while Central 46 and the noble houses lavish in their thrones atop the world. The Shinigami are men and women with too much power squabbling over control while the rest of us suffer. I'm sorry, Wunderweiss, but my reasons for being here are not simple enough to fully explain. Konami concluded. Ichigo frowned at the explanation as he remembered the large district he destroyed in the Soul Society outside of the Seraiti with his Getsuga Jujisho. Those people out there, they weren't Shinigami. After a long, awkward silence, Ichigo finally nodded. Good talking to you, Konami. Take care, Wunderweiss. Without another word, he left the duo as he went to find a room. After a short search, he came across one of the more prominent palace chambers with suitable enough living conditions. Ichigo didn't waste any time plopping down on the large bed as he finally dropped his guard for the first time in weeks. His mind was racing in 100 directions, but drowsiness soon overcame his senses as Ichigo slipped into a long-deserved slumber. Ichigo's dream. Ichigo stood alone in a massive field across from what appeared to be the Seraiti. It was noticeably absent walls or any recognizable buildings. Fire covered the horizon in all directions surrounding him. He was in his release form, but for some reason, Ichigo only had one sword instead of his standard two. His fired a Sero at the Seraiti with tremendous force, releasing a blood-curdling hollow howl along with it. Before it could devastate his target, a massive wave of fire cut it in half, sending his Sero erupting either side into the distance. Moments later, the fire came barreling after him, engulfing Ichigo in an inferno. Despite its raw heat and power, he managed to fight through it and charge closer towards the heart of the Soul Society. After clearing the flames, he stopped dead in his tracks as a long line of Shinigami blocked his advance. In front of and behind them was a massive battlefield full of corpses. Dead Arrancars littered the ground. He was the only hollow still alive that was present on the battlefield. There's the leader. That's Zangetsu, one of the Shinigami said with an excited bloodlust. The Sero Espada. That's the Hollow King, another one said in a mixture of excitement and fear. Kill it. Hollows always run away if you kill their leader, another Shinigami commanded. The group walked forward, led by the man with the fiery sword. Ichigo's vision blacked out as they approached and he soon found himself falling down in darkness. He flailed around during the descent, unable to stop it, and before long crashed into the ground. The moment he hit the ground, he jerked upright, waking from his dream. Dream over. Ichigo sat there frozen in thought as he tried to rationalize the dream. What was that? Before Ichigo could give it any serious thought, a concerned voice caught his attention. Are you all right, Ichigo? His eyes shot open as he looked around for the voice's owner. It was then he noticed Ulquiorra sitting on the window balcony illuminated by the moonlight. The orange-haired hollow stood up and stared at him curiously. Ulquiorra. What are you doing in here? How long have I been sleeping? Quite a while, several days according to the Shinigami. A lot has happened since then, Ulquiorra answered. Did you come to get me? What's going on? Ichigo wondered. Ulquiorra nodded. Not exactly. I have been guarding you so that nobody would interrupt your sleep. I was probably going to wake you though since Isshin wants everyone to meet up. While you were asleep, Isshin already went ahead and transformed many of the other hollows. A lot of them have been lounging around the main throne room. Damn, I need to go check on things then, Ichigo said seriously. The haziness from his sleep was now starting to wear off. The black-haired Arrancar shrugged. I believe they're waiting on you. All right, let's go, Ichigo said as he quickly put a fresh outfit on and made his way for the door. As they exited, Ichigo looked at Ulquiorra curiously. You stood guard while I slept. You don't have to do that, Ulquiorra. I shouldn't have slept that long. You must have needed it, his friend said. Let's hurry up. Ichigo changed the subject as he took off with a sonido. Ulquiorra frowned slightly. He was flailing in his sleep. It must have been a nightmare. Throne room, Las Noches, X. As Ichigo and Ulquiorra made their way into the throne room of Las Noches, they were promptly greeted by the room's inhabitants. About time you showed up. We've been lying around doing nothing forever it seems. Grimmjow sighed in annoyance. Ah, Ichigo, good to see you awake. I was going to come get you, but Ulquiorra did not approve of anyone disturbing you, Isshin stated. Several of the others offered various remarks of approval or disapproval, but Ichigo ignored them as he made his way to the front where Isshin was standing. He stared at the man briefly. Is there a reason you have everyone gathered in here? Well, I took the liberty of transforming the remaining hollows while you were asleep. Your council didn't seem to mind since we were not permitted to wake you, Isshin explained. This had better not be a waste of our time, Berrigan complained. I assure you, Berrigan, that it is not. The reformation of the Espada is something even you must want, Isshin said coyly. Everyone's eyes widened at the statement. Though many of the lesser Arrancars didn't fully understand, Ichigo and Berrigan in particular were shocked by Isshin's announcement. Ichigo cocked his head confused. You know about the Espada? Isshin nodded. Yes, and now that all of Las Noches hollows are Arrancars, we can properly rank all of you. How dare you assume that such a right belongs to you? Berrigan hissed. Ichigo held up his hand to silence Berrigan. We will reform the Espada then. How does the ranking work exactly? Answering his question, Isshin brought forth a large device, somewhat mechanical in nature. Hooked to it through some type of link was the Hogyoku, which rested on a pedestal. The large device was difficult to fully describe and was clearly not something Ichigo understood. This is a device used to measure your power. By syncing it with the Hogyoku, it will automatically assign a number based on a variety of criteria. Like the Arrancars of the past, you will be numerically ranked from weakest to strongest. Typically this device would only read your current strength, but with the Hogyoku's addition, I can factor in your future potential and hidden powers as well, Isshin went into detail. The orange-haired hollow glanced around the room full of Arrancars. They were all beaming with excitement at the idea. Some appeared nervous about having to be ranked according to power. Harabelle crossed her arms curiously. So then we're going to be ranked. For what purpose? What are the Espada exactly? Grimmjow cut in. Nobody bothered explaining that to the rest of us. Before Ichigo could answer, Isshin did instead. They will be the 10 strongest Arrancars. As the ranking system goes for your kind, the stronger hollows will have the smallest numbers. Alright, fine, so what are we waiting for? Neutra said eagerly. I'm looking forward to see how far I rank above the rest of you. Fat chance, Neutra, you weren't even a Vasto Lord. You'd be lucky to break the top 10, Lupi mocked him. The lanky Arrancar sent him a death glare. I guarantee I'm stronger than the likes of you, bitch. Neither one of you will live long enough to see it if you don't shut up. Grimmjow immediately silenced the two. Apache looked at Isshin nervously. So, what about the rest of us who don't become Espada? What will we be? Numeros, hollows with 2-digit numbers, Berrigan answered before Isshin could. The brown-haired captain glanced over and nodded. Yes, I imagine Barragan is quite familiar with these terms. For those directly below the Espada, they will be the numeros. Let's get on with it, Ichigo said before an argument could break out again. Very well, all of you will place your hands on this device and it will read your power. After everyone has done so, it will call out your name and a number will form over the back of your hands, Isshin instructed. We don't need some stupid machine to tell us who's the strongest. Grimmjow said disapprovingly. Just do it, Ichigo said calmly. One by one, every Arrancar in the room reluctantly lined up to place their hands on the device. It glowed every time a new person would touch it. After everyone in the massive chamber did so, Ichigo placed his hands on last. A bright glow flashed around him before he pulled his hand away. Isshin nodded approvingly as he went over to touch the Hogyoku. It sent a volt of power into the machine and soon fired out a stream of energy at every single hollow in the room. After the energy subsided, Isshin smiled. It will now begin with the highest number. There was close to 100 Arrancars in the room and the machine announced a number in the high 90s calling the name of a hollow Ichigo didn't know. It was obviously one of the newer ones Isshin transformed while he was sleeping. Ichigo listened curiously as the machine counted down, assigning numbers to each Arrancar. Every time it called a number and name, the machine shot a stream of energy onto the back of said Arrancar's hands. This continued for quite a while as it counted down lower and lower. Ichigo didn't really pay much attention to who was being ranked until the machine started announcing the 30s. 36. D. Roy Rinker. 35. Nakim Grindina. 34. Dondochaka Burstan. 33. Pesci Guadich. 32. Tesla Lindacruz. 31. Nerg Parduak. 30. Avarama Redder. 29. Charlotte Kuhlhorn. 28. Cyan Sung Sun. 27. Francesca Mila Rose. 26. Findor Callius. 25. Edrad Leones. 24. Yilfort Grants. 23. Cho Neng Puao. 22. Tiburon Martillo. 21. Ggio Vega. 20. Rudborn Chalut. 19. Sha Long Kufang. 18. Gantenban Mosqueda. 17. Lali Avern. 16. Mainoli Malia. 15. Emilo Apache. 14. Araniero Arurueri 13. Chiruchi Sanderwichi. 12. Shayelaporo Grants. 11. Dordoni Alessandro del Socaccio 10. Lupi Antenor. The numeros have been ranked. Everyone seemed surprised by their ranks, and some slightly angered by it. Ggio glared at Sha Long and Ichigo's followers. How am I weaker than all of them? And who the hell is this Rudborn? You expect me to believe I am weaker than this clown? Chiruchi said disbelievingly as she pointed at Lupi. Dordoni shared her reaction. I don't believe this ranking system is accurate. Don't act surprised. I wasn't joking when I said I was stronger than most of you, Lupi boasted. His arrogant tone seemed to annoy quite a few of the lower-ranked Arrancars. Lupi sighed heavily, but unfortunately I barely fell short of making it into the Espada. It seems strange, Gantenban said as he tried to make sense of his rank. Mila Rose crossed her arms. I ranked higher than I expected, but either way, I knew I'd be above Sung Sun. The former snake sent a venomous glare towards her friend, perhaps in power, but not in beauty or intellect. Why you? The lioness growled. Grimmjow looked at many of his followers disappointed. You all rank lower than I thought you would. Big brother, I couldn't help but notice your number doubles mine. Zael smiled at his blonde brother. Yilfort rolled his eyes. Get over yourself, it's not like you made it into the Espada. Everyone's conversations were cut short as the machine spoke again. The Espada will now be ranked. 9. Zamari Ruro. 8. Neutra Gilga. What? Why am I only 8th? The man shouted. You should feel honored, considering everyone's who's left used to be a Vasto Lord. Harabel silenced him immediately. The machine continued. 7. Wunderweiss Margula. 6. Grimmjow Jagerjackes. You've got to be kidding me. There's no way the rest of them are stronger than me. He protested. 5. Nalil 2 Odelschwenk. The machine continued once again. Nell's face lit up. Wow, I didn't expect such a low number. She examined the newly formed number on her hands with awe. There's no way in hell you're stronger than me. Grimmjow shook his head in disbelief. The turquoise-haired woman shook her head. Hey, don't get mad at me, I'm not the one who picked these numbers. 4. Ulquiorra cipher, the machine interrupted. The green-eyed Arrancar had no visible reaction as he stoically stared at the machine. It's obvious that Ichigo will be the strongest, but I wonder where the other 3 will rank. 3. Tia Haribel. The blonde nodded in acceptance. That seems close enough to what I was expecting. Grimjow's eyes widened. I didn't expect 2 females to rank above me. Are they really stronger than I am? 2. Coyote Stark and Lilinet Gingerbuck, the device announced. How the hell can 2 people have 1 rank? Neutra demanded angrily. They both used to be the same being, Ichigo answered. Many people in the room were surprised by the revelation of such a fact. Stark's eyes widened slightly in surprise. I wasn't expecting anyone to be stronger than me besides Ichigo. If that's the case, then the former king. 1. Berrigan Lusenbairn. There's no way he's stronger than us, right Stark? Lilinet said, not fully accepting the rank. The man shrugged. I don't know, and I don't really care either. 0. Ichigo Kurosaki. The Espada have been ranked, the machine concluded. After it finished, Ichigo looked at the mark on his hand. Cerro Espada, king, just like him. Grimjow was feeling a bit unhappy at the results, that his 2 opponents for the throne were ranked way above him. Nobody was surprised by Ichigo's rank, but Lilinet sent a sharp glare towards Aizen. How exactly does this machine determine our power? Because Stark and I used to kill weaker hollows just being around them. We're stronger than the old guy. You may very well be in terms of raw power, but like I said, raw power does not factor all of your ranks. The Hogyoku can gauge your potential. The old system would simply rank those with the highest Reiatsu. The new one I've created is more accurate in determining battle effectiveness, Aizen explained. So she's more battle effective than I am? Grimjow asked, looking at Nell doubtfully. Ichigo nodded. She's very strong, Grimjow, and she can heal too. Upon hearing his comment about Nell, several of the room's female inhabitants sent glares her way. Apache shook her head. Damn that chick. She thinks she's such hot stuff. Well sorry, Grimjow, Nell apologized sheepishly. The blue-haired man simply scoffed. HMPH, I guess number 6 ain't all that bad. I'll bet Stark and I could still kick your ass, old guy. Lilinet threatened. Stark sighed at her outburst. Please don't pick fights, Lilinet. I was the king of Hueco Mundo for thousands of years. Don't speak as if I am beneath you, girl, Berrigan retorted to Lilinet. She gritted her teeth angrily, but Stark simply sighed. It's not a big deal, Lilinet, it just means less responsibility. Plus, what's the difference between Segunda and Primera anyways? We all still answer to Ichigo, and the old guy likes to manage stuff too. I don't mind, personally. You lazy ass. That's probably why we're below him, because you're so passive. She said, annoyed. Many of you former Vasto Lords were very close in terms of power and potential, according to the schematics. It would seem none of you came close to Ichigo, however, Aizen stated as he glanced over the machine's results. Zale immediately ran over and started looking over them. Let me look at this. I'll explain how things works to these simpletons. Ahem. As you can see, everyone, there is a point system here that measures. I don't give a shit about your statistics, can we just get on with this now? Neutra interrupted unhappily. Ichigo walked over and looked at the numbers Zale mentioned. There were several overlapping charts that measured different things about them. Next to each person's name was a number except for his. Ichigo stared at it curiously. Ichigo Kurosaki, error. Berrigan Lusenbairn, 540. Coyote Stark, 537. Tia Haribel, 531. Ulquiorra Cipher, 529. Nalil 2 Odelschwenk, 521. Grimjow Jagerjax, 515. Wunderweiss Margula, 510. Neutra Gilga, 496. Looking up from the data, Ichigo glanced at Zale curiously. Why does it say error for my results? Aizen walked between the two of them as he looked down at it. Likely because they were off the charts. There is a great disparity between you and the rest of the Espada. Though I'm sure that's obvious by this point. Everyone in the room paled at that revelation. Ichigo himself seemed surprised. He said, this device ranks our potential. How could mine be that much higher than the rest of them? Does it have something to do with my mixed blood? or Zangetsu, but even he was killed. Is this really good enough? What do these numbers mean? Lillinet ran over to look at the results surprised. The old guy beat us by 3 points. That's bogus. How should we organize our army now that everyone is ranked? Harabel asked. Those of you in the Espada should have personal guards, a fraction who may act on your behalf. Wouldn't you agree, Ichigo? Aizen asked. Ichigo nodded as he looked over the crowd of gossiping Arankars before speaking. That's a good idea. Each of the Espada will be allowed to choose a personal group of followers from the numeros to be in their fraction. I choose Apache, Lolly, and Mainoli, my original 3 followers. The trio ran over to him excitedly from the announcement. They didn't get a chance to say much as Berrigan spoke next. I choose my royal guards and enforcers to be my fraction. Ggio, Tiburon, Nerg, Huao, Avarama, Findor, and Charlotte. You want some more while you're at it? Just take the whole army. Neutra shook his head laughing. Stark simply shrugged. I pick Lillinet if she counts. If not, then I'm good. Sung Sun and Mila rose. Harabel stated, simply waving her followers over. Ulquiorra shook his head. I don't need a fraction, they would get in the way of my duties. Watching Ichigo sleep is a duty now. Jin spoke for the first time with a sly grin. Several people sent Ulquiorra strange looks. The dark-haired man simply stared back stoically. I do not have to explain myself to you. Nell thought for a moment. I choose Chiruchi, Gantenban, and Dordoni to be my fraction. Grimjow sighed. Xiaolong, Edrad, Yilfort, Nakim, and D. Roy might as well keep the gang together. Wunderweiss looked around blankly for a moment. I pick Lupi. The effeminate Arankar gave Wunderweiss a surprised look. Why would you choose me? I don't even know you. Wunderweiss said nothing in response, which led to an awkward silence. Reluctantly, Lupi walked over to his side. I suppose I don't have a choice, do I? Neutra glanced through the crowd and rolled his one eye. I guess that guy. He pointed at Tesla. He can be my errand boy if he wants. Tesla eagerly made his way over and bowed to Neutra. It will be an honor to serve you, Neutra-sama. Spare me the pleasantries, he said carelessly. Zamari seemed calm as he looked over the crowd. After a moment he turned towards Aizen and Ichigo. I do not need personal guards or followers. I am content with where I stand. All right then, those of you remaining will simply fall under the command of the army. Only Espada can give orders, so don't go trying to boss each other around. Shielaporo Grants will be our research division leader. Before we conclude this meeting, is there anyone else who has a special ability or trait that would be suited for a unique position? Ichigo asked. Stepping forward from the crowd, an Arankar with a full mask resembling Longhorn's skull spoke up. Your Majesty, my name is Rudborn Chalut. I am capable of creating an army of clones. Observe. Ichigo watched interested as the skull-headed Arankar created clones of himself. Unlike the original, they lacked horns however. Ichigo laughed at the sight. That looks pretty useful. Aizen nodded in agreement. The addition of expendable rank and file troops would be invaluable. You get a special position as well, Rudborn. Ichigo nodded approvingly. If that is all, then get to training immediately. Yes, Your Majesty, many of the numeros said. The other Espada didn't say anything, but they all began to disperse. As everyone filed out, Ichigo looked at Aizen seriously. Hey Sosuke, will you train with me? The brown-haired man seemed surprised by his request but nodded approvingly. Of course, Ichigo, but what kind of training are you referring to? Just follow me, Ichigo said. Chapter 14. War on the Horizon. Karakura Town. Isshin bolted frantically to Rukin Ishida's home after his encounter with Urahara and the Vizards. His mind was racing a million different directions as he tried to contemplate what was going on with Yuzu. Damn it, I should have paid more attention to what she was doing. Why would Yuzu be spending time with Rukin's son? Upon reaching the Ishida residence, Isshin pounded on the door as hard as he could. Rukin, get out here. It didn't take long for said man to appear as he opened the door. The white-haired man adjusted his glasses and looked at Isshin curiously. Wearing your Shinigami attire, I see. What brings you here, Isshin? I'm pretty sure you know why I'm here. Where's Yuzu? Isshin demanded. Rukin sighed. I figured you would catch on eventually. Urahara probably already did, but he's left her well enough alone. Yuzu was with my son, Ryu last I saw. He's training her in the art of being a Quincy. What? You told Yuzu about all of this? About us? Isshin gawked angrily. The Quincy shook his head. No, I did not. She came looking for me actually. Apparently Yuzu knows all about you and Karin, and Ichigo. She came by the hospital asking for me. Ryu found her there and discovered that she was a Quincy as well. Yuzu is human. She is not a Quincy. Isshin said disbelievingly. What gives you the right to keep this information from me? We've been friends for a long time, Isshin, I know you all too well. When it comes to your children, you are blind. I knew you would have protested, but there is no denying the facts here. Yuzu awakened Quincy powers and somebody found her. They told her to come to me for training, and she's been under our tutelage ever since, Rukin explained. Isshin balled a fist furiously. Who could have possibly sent Yuzu to you? Was it another Quincy? How could they have known Yuzu had Quincy powers? A Sternritter by the name of Candace. She tried to recruit me into the Wandenreich, but I declined. I believe she was the one who sent Yuzu to us, the white-haired man answered. Isshin's eyes widened. Sternritter. Wandenreich. What the hell is that? Rukin sighed. The Wandenreich is a militaristic organization of surviving pure-blood Quincies. I do not know much about them, but I know they are not an organization I care to be a part of. Sternritters are like their elite knights, Rukin stated coolly. That doesn't make any sense. Why would somebody like that send Yuzu your way, unless they're luring you? Isshin's eyes shot open. Rukin seemed to immediately catch on to Isshin's line of thought as he brought a hand to his face. Damn it, I shouldn't have overlooked that. Rukin, where's your son, and Yuzu? Could that Sternritter have contacted them again? Isshin asked, now alarmed. Rukin seemed caught off guard by the revelation. I can't sense their spiritual power. I thought they were still beneath the training ground. Maybe they're still there, Isshin said somewhat hopefully. The white-haired man looked away for a moment. No, it's been too long. I should have kept a closer eye on them. Did they get recruited? I thought you were watching them, Rukin. Isshin said frantically. The Quincy grunted in aggravation. I should have known. Candace was up to something. We will go find them immediately. You're damned right we will. Isshin growled. Before either man could say another word, a third voice joined their conversation. Don't bother. I saw two people take a pair of teenagers into some kind of strange gateway recently. They're probably already out of reach. Both men jerked their heads to the source of the voice and spotted a darker-skinned woman with purple hair. Isshin gawked in disbelief. Yoruichi. When did you get here? I've been following you since you got back at Kazuki's place. I didn't realize things had gotten that bad in the Soul Society. Your son's a hollow and he actually fought Captain Commander Yamamoto. Yoruichi confirmed. Isshin nodded. Yes, where have you been all this time, anyway? Hanging out with Kazuki and whatnot. Though after seeing all of the Vizards head back to the Soul Society, I figured it was a good time to come out of hiding, Yoruichi elaborated. I guess your timing is good then, because apparently Central 46 was killed during Aizen's betrayal, Isshin said seriously. The woman's eyes widened. So then Aizen was the one who let White into the Soul Society. I guess that explains how he got in. Rukin Ishida stared at Isshin disbelievingly. Did she just say that your son was a hollow? Ichigo isn't just any hollow. He's become the same hollow that attacked Masaki over 2 decades ago, Isshin said in a depressed, but serious way. The Quincy eyed Isshin curiously before staring at Yoruichi. That's absurd, and you say he fought the Shinigami leader. Yoruichi shrugged. Hey, that's just what I heard. Isshin needs to fill me in on everything still. That hollow that infected Masaki all those years ago, it latched onto Ichigo's soul. After he died, they became something else. They've fused souls and are now one being. That powerful hollow, White, looks exactly like Ichigo, because it is Ichigo. Yet, he acts like a bloodthirsty, hate-filled monster. Ichigo was never like that. The son I had, will never be the same again, Isshin said bitterly as if he was just now accepting the situation. Rukin's eyes widened considerably. That hollow, fused with your son. What does that make him? When I gave up my power to save Masaki, it must have imprinted into the hollow's powers and Masaki's. When Ichigo was born, he was born with all 3 of our powers, abilities, and blood. And now, he's an Arrancar as well. His spiritual energy is tremendous, he's more powerful than I am. He's more powerful than Yamamoto as well. If Ichigo ever unlocks his Quincy blood, he'll be invincible, Isshin ranted. Calm yourself, Isshin, surely you're exaggerating here. It is impossible for a hollow to command Quincy powers. Hollow and Quincy powers cannot mix, it's impossible. Ichigo would have to simply choose between one or the other. Rukin tried to calm the man. Isshin sighed heavily. I've got my work cut out for me. I've failed all of my children, just like I failed Masaki. Karin's doomed to walk down the same path as me. Yuzu is God knows where thanks to your actions. Worst of all, Ichigo is the king of Hueco Mundo. How can I accept something like that? What would their mother say? If your son is indeed a hollow, you know what has to be done, Rukin said slowly. Yes, I do. I just don't know how I can live with myself after it's done. What would Yuzu or Karin say? How would they feel to see their own father killing their older brother? Yuzu especially. She loves Ichigo more than Karin and I combined, and that's saying something. That's why I didn't want her involved in any of this. She and Karin will hate me if I kill Ichigo, but I have to. Isshin said emotionally. His behavior was completely abnormal to Rukin, who was used to seeing Isshin in one of two ways. One, he was either goofy and carefree, or two, Isshin was serious. Seeing his longtime friend buried in guilt, shame, and depression was a very hard thing for Rukin to watch. The white-haired man looked away. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You're a good man, Isshin, and you didn't deserve this fate. However, that does not change anything. You would be doing your family a greater disservice by allowing Ichigo to exist as a hollow abomination. My son, my only son, Isshin trailed off as he looked down at the ground. Rukin looked at Isshin seriously. Do not give in to despair, Isshin, you have a job to do. You should go and do it. Well, nothing's going to get accomplished by us just standing around here. You and I need to go back to the Soul Society, Isshin. If you don't mind, I want to know the whole story on the way back, Yoruichi suggested to Isshin. The man nodded in acceptance. Isshin turned his gaze back onto Rukin seriously. Try and find out what happened to Yuzu. I'm counting on you. Please let me know anything as soon as you can. Of course, old friend, I promise I'll find them, Rukin reassured him. Let's go, Isshin. If we hurry, we might be able to catch up to Kazuki, Yoruichi stated as she practically dragged the man away. After they departed, Rukin balled a fist. Oryu, you idiot. I was counting on you to take care of the girl. You should have known better than to accept the offer of the Sternritters. Soul Society, Captain's Meeting. Deep in the heart of the Seraiti, within the Soul Society's Squad 1 barracks, a large assembly of powerful captains, lieutenants, and newcomers were gathered. Each of the various squad captains minus the 3 traitors were lined on either side of Yamamoto with their lieutenants. Across from Yamamoto stood Kazuki Urahara along with the large group of newly arrived Vizards. Rukia quickly made her way to Yukitaki's side as the Vizards formed a line behind Urahara. Yamamoto narrowed his gaze, so it would seem Captain Shiba was right after all. It is good that you came here, Kazuki Urahara. Where is Captain Shiba? Did he not return with you? Hey, Captain Commander, good to see ya. Isshin's got some business, but he'll be back here shortly. He told us to go ahead without him. Urahara stated casually despite the hostile confusion of the situation. Many of the captains gawked at the man as well as the former Shinigami officers behind him. I see you have brought the rest of your accomplices back with you, Yamamoto noted as he looked over the Vizards, though considering your former claims in relation to the current situation, it would seem you were innocent after all. Sosuke Aizen was indeed a traitor. You're damned right we were innocent. I'm glad Central 46 is dead. All this destruction is your fault for not even giving us a chance to set the record straight. Hiyori burst out angrily. She appeared less than pleased with the situation and had a look of rage directed towards her former peers. Shinji shared her disposition, but he was less angry and more condescending in his tone. Sosuke Aizen has always been a traitor. Hiyori is right, this is what you deserve for your short-sighted justice. We were forced into exile over your righteous actions. Shunsui shook his head. Well, my memory is a bit hazy, but I remember seeing Aizen the same night all that happened. How do you explain that? He couldn't have been in 2 places at once. Well, that's another thing you probably need to know. Aizen's Zanpakuto isn't really a water type. Kyoka Suigetsu is actually an illusion type. Its ability revolves around perfect hypnosis. Urahara clarified. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Yunohana stared at Urahara seriously. Are you implying that we were hypnotized by Aizen's Zanpakuto? I wouldn't doubt it. I've kept a close eye on him for decades. Aizen's a crafty guy, Urahara noted. Shinji clenched a fist angrily. It's true. Aizen, Chusen, and that snake of a kid, Ichimaru set us up. Calm down, Hirako, nobody is questioning you now. Obviously, you're all innocent of those crimes. Even if you weren't, I think the Captain Commander would overlook it in this situation. Yunohana silenced the man. Hiyori scoffed in disapproval. Sure he would. We're only welcome back if it conveniences you, right? Kensai sighed. Unless you get rid of that ridiculous execution sentence placed on us, then I'm out of here. We didn't come to justify ourselves to you guys. Yamamoto held up his hand and glared at the Vizards dangerously. Enough with your snide remarks, what's done is done. Due to the recent proof of Sosuke Aizen's treachery, I will extend a pardon on all of you, despite what you are. With Central 46 murdered in cold blood, I have the authority to revoke their decision. You gotta love martial law. Urahara chuckled, but nobody else seemed to find his comment funny. So you're just going to pretend nothing happened and act like we're all good now? Shinji said distastefully. Lisa frowned as she crossed her arms. I think we deserve some kind of compensation for this. It wasn't our fault that those three made us into what we are. I agree with Shinji. Words aren't enough to just make things okay between us. I see. Then why exactly did you choose to return after a century? Yamamoto asked. None of the Vizards had a reply for his question as they all traded looks with each other. Urahara frowned at the statement and spoke on their behalf. I asked them to come. Captain Commander, judging by how powerful Hueco Mundo will become, I figured you needed reinforcements. Plus, I heard about what you did for Isshin. I thought it might be good to clear things up with everyone else as well. Excuse me here, but who and what exactly are all of you? What's this about pardoning them? What happened? Toshiro cut into the conversation with a serious curiosity. Before any of the Vizards could answer, Kazuki spoke up. Allow me to explain to those of you that don't know. Many of us used to be Gote 13 officers over a century ago, but after an incident involving Sosuke Aizen, we were all framed under the assumption that I had performed holification on all of them. At the time I wasn't sure what Aizen was hoping to gain from it, but now it makes sense. He wanted to create Arankars. With his own Hogyoku he indirectly turned these former captains and lieutenants here into Vizards, which is like a Shinigami antithesis to a hollow Arankar. Many of the younger captains gasped or stared with widened eyes at the news. The older ones seemed to share the same line of thought as it became increasingly obvious why Sosuke Aizen would want the Hogyoku and why he was aligned with White. Vizards. What is that exactly? Hitsugaya asked. We can put hollow masks on, Kensai answered bluntly, causing several of the younger captains to stare at them shocked. Renji stared at the Vizards incredulously. And you all used to be former Gote 13 officers? Yes we were, Lisa answered in a matter-of-fact way. I'm the former vice captain of Squad 8. I'm Lieutenant Lisa Yadomaru. Shunsui stared at her almost nostalgically. Lisa, it's good to see you after so many years. Naneo appeared almost emotional, much to everyone's surprise as she gave her former mentor a saddened stare. I thought you were dead. Another one of former Captain Urahara's tricks, Chojiro spoke up for the first time in the meeting. He seemed more interested in the situation than usual. Looking back at the Vizards behind him, Urahara sighed. Well, you guys might as well reintroduce yourselves to the new Gote 13. I'm pretty sure most of them won't recognize you. Kensai and Rose appeared passive, but had somewhat serious expressions. Love sighed as he stepped forward first. Rabu Aikawa, aka Love, former captain of Squad 7. Rojiro Otoribashi, but you can call me Rose. I was the Squad 3 captain, the blonde introduced himself. I'm Mashiro Kuna, the green-haired visored woman announced cheerily, despite the tension, former Squad 9 lieutenant. Kensai sighed. I was her captain in Squad 9, the name's Kensai Mugaruma. Shuahei, the acting leader of Squad 9 due to Tusen's betrayal, was in pure shock at the sight of his former hero. The scarred lieutenant voiced his opinion. Captain Mugaruma. Did you know about Konami Tusen? Was he involved with Aizen from the start? The white-haired man gave the scarred Shinigami a curious look. I recognize you, Hisagi, right? Before their conversation could continue, Shinji introduced himself. I'm Shinji Hirako, and I'm the former captain of Squad 5. Sosuke Aizen was my lieutenant, before we were framed. I am Hachigen Ushoda. I was a high-ranking member of the Kido Corps, the hefty pink-haired man continued. Finally giving into the situation, Hiyori sighed. Hiyori Surugaki, former Squad 12 lieutenant. And I'm Kazuki Urahara. As I'm sure most of you know by now, this cute little fox was my underling. Urahara chuckled, lightening the mood slightly. Hiyori cracked a fist at him. Don't call me cute, that's gross coming from you. Mayuri Kuretsuchi narrowed his gaze at Urahara spitefully. Yes, we all know you are, the former captain of Squad 12. Now that these unpleasant introductions are over, how's about you explain the nature of the Hogyoku that Sosuke Aizen was after? Everyone's thoughts and conversations were cut short as they focused on Urahara wondering that very question. The man lifted his hat slightly so that the room could see his face better. Urahara appeared serious as he looked at the crowd. My Hogyoku was supposed to be kept hidden. Part of me had hoped that it would remain dormant in Rukia Kuchiki, forgotten. Why was this item in Rukia to begin with? I wasn't aware that you two had any kind of connection. Byakuya asked bluntly with a touch of displeasure in his voice. Kazuki rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, that's sort of complicated. You see, I put it in her a while back when she was stationed in Karakura town. It was where I was hiding all this time. Her power level was perfectly suited for concealing it since she is strong enough to hold it but not too strong that she would activate its power. I sort of had to sneak it in, if you catch my drift. Sneak it in. You might want to reword that, Byakuya said darkly. Why me though? Rukia asked uncertainly. Urahara sighed. I needed to hide the Hogyoku before Aizen found out where we were. If he had discovered us, it might have been possible that he would use our traitor status to hunt me down with the Soul Society's permission and retrieve the Hogyoku with authorized force. I knew that if it was hidden with you, he wouldn't find it for a while. And if he did, he wouldn't be able to take it without activating the Hogyoku's power. I imagine you all felt a strong spike in spiritual pressure when Aizen took it out of her, right? That was a final failsafe so that if he did so, it would alert everyone in the Seraiti that something was happening. It prevented Aizen from taking it since it would leave him cornered. Unfortunately, I had no idea that he had an escape route to Hueco Mundo planned. It would seem he got one up on me. I don't care how this all happened, I care about what we plan on doing to stop them. White is monstrously powerful. Is there anything you can tell us about that hollow, Urahara? Captain Shiba said that it used to be another hollow before fusing with his son. Is that true? Soifin asked angrily. Kazuki rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, besides the fact that his name is Ichigo, and he has Isshin's Shinigami powers, there's not that much I could tell you about White. Don't play dumb, you asshole. You knew that creature was Shiba's son all along, didn't you, Urahara? Hiyori put him on the spot. Everyone stared at Urahara incredulously. He simply looked down somewhat shamefully. I had my suspicions. It seemed to be more than a coincidence that a hollow matching the description of the one that attacked Isshin decades ago just so happened to appear again after his son died to a hollow attack. So you're saying you knew and you didn't tell Captain Shiba? Hitsugaya asked threateningly. Like I said, it was just a theory. Isshin probably suspected it too, but the guy's a bit soft in the head when it comes to his kids. I figured it was best to let him come to terms with it himself, Urahara replied. A warning to the Soul Society might have been nice, Soifin scoffed in annoyance. Kazuki nodded. Yeah, and not getting banished would have been nice too. Sadly, nothing ever goes exactly as planned. Regardless of all that, we're in serious trouble if Sosuke Aizen has my Hogyoku. My guess is that he's probably already combined it with his own and has a complete Hogyoku now. With White on his side, he'll easily be able to mass-produce an army of Arankars with it. Plus, there's no telling what else he intends to do with the Hogyoku's power. This is crazy. So that's what they were after. White wanted to mass-produce an army of these Arankars with the help of Sosuke Aizen. Komamura jaw dropped. Yamamoto scoffed in annoyance. White believes he is the king of the Hollows, and is building an army to challenge us. It would seem we are now at war. The existence of organized Arrancars poses not only a danger to the Soul Society, but to the balance of everything. What makes Arrancars so dangerous? I mean, besides the obvious fact that they're powerful Hollows. Is there some particular reason why they want to kill us? If we could diminish their reasons for wanting to work with Isshin, we'd stand a better chance, wouldn't we? Rukia questioned, not fully understanding the severity of the situation. Chojiro answered her question before anyone else could. Arrancars are an abomination of nature. They are Hollows that possess Shinigami powers. Not only that, but they are far more intelligent and organized since they are more human. When Hollows become Arrancars, they cease needing to feed on each other. When that happens, they typically turn away from fighting one another and unite to fight against us. Wait, so this has happened before? Renji asked with a shocked expression. Chojiro looked over at Yamamoto and then Unohana. Both of them had looks of intensity directed his way. He took this as a sign to shut his mouth and shook his head. Not exactly, but Hollows are dangerous regardless of their form. Natural Arrancars have always been rare, some say rarer than Vasto Lords. To imagine an army of them is something foreboding. With White and Sosuke Aizen pulling the strings, there's no telling what kind of havoc they can inflict on us. It would seem all of this is Kazuki Urahara's fault. I recommend we go forth with the execution anyways, Mayuri said sadistically. No complaints here, Hiyori added as she glared at the man. Before anyone else could add their 2 cents to the conversation, Yamamoto growled loudly, all this talk of blame is getting us nowhere. Get back to the matter at hand. I agree, as foolish as Urahara's actions were, they are irrelevant now. We have a much bigger issue to deal with, and cannot afford to point fingers anymore. Byakuya stated coolly. Kyoraka nodded approvingly. Yeah, my first question is how the hell are we going to stop White from doing another one of those cross-beam attacks? It tore through the Seraiti like a knife through butter. The huge path of destruction that goes all the way out to the Rukongai, what was that? We saw the scarred landscape on the way in. Did White really create an attack of that magnitude? Lisa cut into the conversation curiously. Kyoraka sighed. Well, that was the crossbeam attack that White used to get rid of me and Jashiro. I think it was called a Getsuga Jujisho. He seemed pretty angry when we tried to stop him. Thankfully Jashiro's Shikai was active or we'd have both been toast. I saw and felt that attack from the other side of the Seraiti. It demolished an entire Rukongai district. Momo added with a depressed, hopeless tone. She was still recovering from the aftermath of her captain's betrayal, but was even more horrified by the fact that he was aligned with the most infamous Hollow known to the Soul Society. That whole trail of destruction was from one attack. Shinji deadpanned. Yes, and I'm willing to wager that it's only a fraction of what White's capable of. If something like that could do so much damage, then he's more than match for most of the captains. I believe Captain Soifin was correct. It will require strategy and teamwork to take White down. He is not a foe that we can hope to overpower, Yukataki added. How did his attack penetrate Sekiseki Stone though? Isn't it supposed to absorb spiritual energy? Hiyori deadpanned. Ichigo might already have access to some of his Quincy powers, that's not good. Urahara seemed indifferent to the situation as he gave Yamamoto a stern look. I don't know if it's a good idea to tell them about Masaki's heritage. They've got enough to worry about without having to deal with the fact that Ichigo is part Quincy. The head captain likely knows, but I don't think Isshin would like me spreading that information here. I should ask him and see what he's told them before I say anything. Yukataki shook his head. It is a great mystery. Though unfortunately, that is not the most pressing issue. The fact that this Hollow was able to hold his own against the Captain Commander is what I find remarkably terrifying. We cannot simply rely on the Captain Commander to stop this juggernaut. We need a plan before things come to that. Yeah, old man Yama would probably have to use his Bankai to kill that beast of a Hollow if we all failed. That's bad for everyone, trust me, Kyoraka agreed. Don't even bother strategizing. I will kill that creature myself the next time he appears. All of you have proven yourselves too feeble for the task. That Hollow is my responsibility now. If any of you wish to prove yourselves useful, then you will need to deal with his army. I will not watch you children flail helplessly against a foe you cannot defeat. Yamamoto growled. Many of the captains were shocked by Yamamoto's hostile, condescending remark. The younger captains especially, seemed angry that he considered them weak. In particular, Soifun, Hitsugaya, Komamura, Byakuya, and Kenpachi were all displeased by Yamamoto's lack of faith. Some hid it better than others, such as Byakuya and Komamura, but Soifun was actually glaring at the old Shinigami with fury. Kenpachi had a disapproving stare, but said nothing. Do we have any kind of estimate of how many hollows White will bring back next time? Hitsugaya asked. Nobody answered, much to his disappointment, which led to a very awkward, foreboding silence. Toshiro shook his head depressed. We need to know what we're up against. How many Arankars do you think White might bring? Urahara answered, much to his relief. Well, considering how rare Vasto lords are, I wouldn't imagine him having many Arankars stronger than captain level on his side. Though if you throw in the 3 captains along with whatever else he's got in his arsenal, then I'd say it's very possible for him to have at least a dozen captain-class allies. You're saying he's got a dozen captain-class allies? Hitsugaya gasped. Surely you're exaggerating. Well, I can't say for sure, but it's very possible he might even have more than that, Urahara said forebodingly. How are we going to stop an army of hollows like that? Komamura demanded. His unusual moodiness was rubbing off on several others nearby. Tetsuzimon Iba shared his captain's disposition as he stood with his head down. Azane Katetsu shook her head fearfully. We won't be able to win without heavy casualties. How could the hollows have become this powerful so fast? All hollows can be killed. I think the rest of you need to get past the illusion of invincibility that White tries to exude. The Soul Society will retaliate with its full power if necessary. We must wipe out these Arankars no matter what the cost, Unohana stated in an uncharacteristically dark way. Azane looked at her captain somewhat surprised, but said nothing. Many of the room's inhabitants shared her reaction. Kenpachi Zaraki broke into an approving grin at her response. Now that's the Yakiru I like to see. Rukia stared at Unohana. What's going on with the older captains? It's as if they know something that we don't. I've never seen Captain Unohana say something like that. Why does she and the head captain both look so distressed? They're normally calm about fighting powerful enemies. Shinji crossed his arms. As powerful as White is, I'm having a difficult time imagining Sosuke Aizen taking orders from a hollow. You can't overlook him at all. He's the real puppeteer behind all of this. He's probably just using White against us, most likely with Kyoka Suigetsu. How do you know White isn't using him? Hachigan asked Shinji, causing many in the room to stare wide-eyed at the idea. This is a damn mess. I wonder who has more of a god complex, Aizen or White. Soifun shook her head distastefully. Her mood was even more sour than usual due to Yamamoto's lack of faith in the captains. Maybe if we're lucky, White will kill Aizen for us, Hiyori said almost sadistically, but then we wouldn't get the satisfaction of doing it ourselves. Momo visibly clenched a fist as she thought about Aizen. Why? Why would Captain Aizen do this? It makes no sense. Why would he join forces with that evil hollow? Captain Aizen hates hollows. The woman glared at Hiyori unhappily. Don't say things like that. Captain Aizen, Momo, don't. Toshiro tried to stop her outburst. Hiyori turned her gaze to Aizen's lieutenant with a perplexed glare. You got something you want to say? Oh, I get it. You're Aizen's lieutenant, huh? Squad 5, yeah. Hiyori, stop. Shinji tried to prevent a scene. The short blonde continued nonetheless. Oh no, I want to hear what she has to say. Captain Aizen hates hollows. It makes no sense that he would betray us to them, Momo stated. Hiyori face-palmed. You're clearly in denial. Haven't you been listening this whole time? Aizen's a manipulator. He's probably got you brainwashed for all we know. Momo immediately backed down as she looked away, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. Her longtime idol, and inspiration throughout life, was a traitor to everything he once stood for. It meant that everything she had done or thought up until now was based around a lie. The lieutenant shut down shortly afterward as she refused to look back up. Hiyori looked somewhat regretful from her previous comment but brushed it off as she turned towards the group. There's no telling what's going on with White and Aizen. Though figuring out their allegiance might be in our best interest. So, what was White's real name again? Ichigo, right? Kenpachi confirmed. Urahara nodded in confirmation. Yeah, that's his name, Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo, huh? I'll remember that name for next time. Mortal enemies should know each other's names, Kenpachi said approvingly. Not many people understood the halfway respectful way he spoke of Ichigo. Yamamoto pounded his cane. No, you've failed twice to kill this hollow. You will leave him to me, I will permanently put that thing down. How should we go about our training then, Captain Commander? Also, what are we to do with these vizards? Yukitake asked. The vizards all tensed up upon being mentioned and stared at the old man seriously as they wondered what he had in mind for them. The Shinigami leader looked at several of the former captains. Captain Kensai Mugaruma, you are permitted to reclaim your former position as the Squad 9 captain due to the absence of Konami Tusen. Captain Rojiro Odoribashi, in absence of Jin Ichimaru, you may reclaim Squad 3 should you so choose. And Captain Hirako, you may take the vacant seat as Squad 5's captain. The three named captains stared at Yamamoto somewhat doubtfully, wondering whether or not to accept his offer. Kensai and Rose both instinctively looked towards Shinji, their de facto leader. Shinji shrugged. If it means getting back at Sosuke Aizen, then I'm in, but don't think that makes everything okay between us. We accept as well, Kensai added after trading a brief nod with Rose. Hey, so what about the rest of us? What do you want us to do? Hiyori half demanded. Yamamoto held up his hand. Of course, those of you that were former lieutenants may assume a co-rank with existing lieutenants in these squads. We will need every able-bodied Shinigami ready before White strikes out at us. Several of the current lieutenants seemed confused by the announcement. Shuhei looked at Yamamoto uncertainly before pointing at Mashiro. So you're saying that she and I will have the same seat? Precisely. In times of war, it may very well benefit the Gote 13 to have additional officers in case of casualties, Yamamoto answered. Shuhei nodded. I see. Yay, I get to stay with you, Kensai. Mashiro cheered as she gracefully soared towards Kensai and jumped on his back. The green-haired vizard waved at Shuhei happily. Don't you worry, Hisagi, we'll make Squad 9 fun again. Kensai sighed as Mashiro did some kind of cheerful dance on his back. He looked down halfway annoyed. There's no getting away from you, I guess. Hiyori frowned as she looked at Mayuri. I ain't going to be that creepy guy's lieutenant, forget it. The Pharaoh and I don't get along. I'm only in if you let me be in Shinji's squad. Mayuri gawked at Hiyori offended. Pharaoh, are you mocking my beautiful headpiece? Well, at least it beats the sideways toilet seat thing you used to have up there, Toshiro muttered under his breath. Sideways toilet seat thing? What an ineloquent and inaccurate statement, though considering that it came from you, I shouldn't be surprised, Mayuri noted as he gave Toshiro a condescending look. Lieutenant Tsurugaki, your request is accepted. You may share the seat with Lieutenant Momo Hinamori, Yamamoto nodded. The short blonde woman nodded in acceptance without saying anything. She still appeared unhappy about the situation, but likely trusted in Shinji's decision to accept reinstatement. Lisa looked at Shunsui. So I'm back in Squad 8 then. Don't you worry, Lisa, it'll feel just like home. We'd love to have you back, right Naneo? Kyoku said with a smile. Naneo adjusted her glasses and smiled. We'd be honored to have you here, Lisa. Well, I wasn't expecting such a warm welcome, Lisa said somewhat surprised. Love crossed his arms. So since Squad 7 isn't vacant, where do I fit in? You, along with Captains Shiba and Urahara, will be granted a special status. You will not oversee any particular division or squad, but will be captains nonetheless. Should any captains fall in battle, you will assume their place regardless of the division, Yamamoto clarified. Love nodded but said nothing in response. Hachigan chose not to say anything, but already assumed that his position in the Kido Corps was likely to be reinstated. Something's bothering me. You said they were vizards, right, and that they had hollow masks. How does that work exactly? Rukia asked as she looked over the newly reinstated officers. There was a brief silence, before Mashiro enthusiastically leapt in front of everyone. Allow me to show you. When we put on our hollow masks, we gain additional power for a brief period of time. Everyone stared with surprise as Mashiro put on her visored mask. Mayuri seemed very interested as he stared at it. Those abilities might very well prove useful. Though you would be more useful if you allowed me to take a few samples and study. I don't think so, Freakshow. Hiyori interrupted. You're not going to touch us, got that? Have you made any progress on completing the Garganta? Hana immediately set the conversation back on track. Mayuri sighed heavily. My progress on creating a Garganta is nearing completion. What should we do when it's complete? Yamamoto pounded his cane authoritatively. Nothing, for now. We will let the Hollows come to us. Leaving the Serait's forces divided may prove to be a fatal error due to Sosuke Aizen's inside information. We will need to fortify defenses and train for this war. I want all captains to ensure their squads are prepped and ready for White's invasion. Captain Commander, Soifun shouted, catching everyone's attention. The woman quickly knelt down to Yamamoto and crossed an arm over her chest. I would like your permission to infiltrate Hueco Mundo and spy on White. I will not engage him, just observe. Several people were quick to voice their opinion on the matter. Hitsugaya shook his head. That's suicide. Nobody in their right mind would go to Hueco Mundo with a hollow like White as its king. Plus, how do you intend to sneak around undetected? The intel gathered could prove useful, but it seems too dangerous and not worth the risk, Yukitaki stated. Soifun stood up as she gritted her teeth. It's my job as the leader of the stealth force. I want to contribute to this somehow. There's no amount of training that's going to prepare my squad for fighting something like White and whatever army he brings, not unless we understand what we're dealing with. I don't like the idea of just sitting here and waiting. Well, I could help you out with being undetected. I've developed a Reiatsu concealing cloak, if you'd care to try it out, Urahara suggested. Yamamoto took a deep breath and nodded his head. Very well, your initiative has been accepted, Captain Soifun. I grant you permission to infiltrate Hueco Mundo, but we cannot afford to send a large group. This kind of endeavor would require perfect espionage. I'll go alone, the woman stated callously as if nobody else in the room was capable of helping her. Several of the other officers gave her distasteful looks, but Yamamoto nodded in acceptance. So be it. Are you out of your mind, Captain? You'll killed if they find you there. I can't let you go by yourself. Omaeda protested unhappily. Soifun jabbed him in the stomach with an elbow and glared. Shut up, unlike the rest of you spineless cowards, I'm not going to sit around and expect the Captain Commander to handle White. I'll gather information and return once I find useful exploitations. Ideally, it would be good to learn of the size of his army and the possible weaknesses each hollow exhibits, Chojiro said with a respectful nod. The dark-haired captain nodded her head. I'll leave as soon as Captain Kuretsuchi has the Garganta ready. You there, Urahara, get me that cloak as soon as possible. This meeting is concluded until further notice. Those of you that have been reinstated should restore order to your various divisions. Dismissed, Yamamoto announced, pounding his cane. Karin. Due to recent events, the Shinigami Academy had been closed. Karin couldn't help but feel indifferent to that fact since she didn't care much for it anyways. Her mind was racing a million laps around the thought of Ichigo and his actions. Looking out over a massive balcony overlook from the Shiba mansion, Karin could see a tremendously large scar of pure destruction extending out past the broken wall of the Seraiti. The teen shook her head disbelievingly. How could Ichigo do something like that? Just how powerful is he? Is he stronger than Dad? Her contemplation was cut short as one of the mansion's servants came darting behind her urgently. Shiba-sama. There's somebody at the front door asking for you. Would you like us to get rid of them? Who is it? Karin asked almost mechanically as she didn't really put much thought or care into the question. The messenger answered immediately, a white-haired girl claiming to be one of your classmates. Karin turned towards the messenger and looked at him uncertainly. Yukimura. What would she want? Should I tell her to leave? The man asked. Karin shrugged. Don't bother, I'll tell her myself. After a short trek down the large stairs and into the main lobby, Karin pushed the front door open. Confirming the messenger's statement, it was indeed a Yame. Karin glared at the white-haired girl with a lazy carelessness. Yukimura, what do you want? Shiba, you're alive. I heard some people saying you survived. How did you survive against White? A Yame asked. Karin couldn't help but notice the other girl's unusual, genuine tone. She crossed her arms confrontationally. It doesn't matter, I'm alive. Now care to explain why you're bothering me at my house? The girl looked down almost shamefully. I guess I wanted to apologize. The way you stood up to White was incredibly brave. You probably saved my life. When I heard you survived, I thought I'd come and thank you. Somehow I doubt you really care, Karin said skeptically as she began to push the door closed. Before it could close all the way, Ayame placed her hand on it and held it open. Wait, see, can we talk? Please, there's some things I wanted to know, Ayame persisted. Karin rose a brow doubtfully. Is that so? Why should I care about anything you have to say? You're a bitch who probably should have died in that attack. If that's how you feel, then why did you try and sacrifice yourself to save me? Ayame demanded. Karin rolled her eyes as she took her hand off the door. Fine, come in, we'll talk. Thanks, the other girl said halfway respectfully as she entered the Shiba mansion. Upon entering, she noticed Karin sit down on one of the bottom steps of the staircase. The Shiba teen stared at Ayame intently. For the record, I wasn't trying to save you, I wanted answers from White. That hollow killed my brother Ichigo. White spoke to you like he knew you personally. Care to explain what that was all about? And what's Karakura town? Ayame started her inquiries. Karin sighed. Look, I was a human before coming here not too long ago. Karakura town is where I used to live. I didn't even know my father was a Shinigami until recently. Ayame deadpanned. Wait, what? You were a human recently? Yeah, I didn't get the luxurious childhood you imagined. Captain Yamamoto put me up in this place a while back after my father brought me to the Soul Society, Karin elaborated. The other girl looked completely shocked. Then, all those things I said were. Yeah, they were not true. I didn't even realize my Shikai until after joining the academy, Karin continued. That's impossible. Nobody develops a Shikai that fast. Even I had to spend close to a year to get mine, Ayame protested. Karin shrugged. Whatever, I'm done trying to outdo you. Go ahead and enjoy being queen of the Shinigami Academy because I'm not going back. You're quitting. Why you can't do that? Ayame shouted. After a hollow attack in the heart of the Seraiti and everything that's happened, how can you quit now? The girl looked at Ayame sadly. I couldn't bring back Ichigo even if I could kill White. No amount of power or training is going to mean anything, he's gone forever. Still, you can't just up and quit over something like that. I mean, if you care about your brother's memory, you shouldn't give up, Ayame stated. Karin glared at her. What's with the sudden shift in attitude? Look, I'm sorry, okay. I didn't know all that stuff about you. In fact, I barely know anything about you at all. So, how did White kill your brother exactly? Ayame asked. I don't feel like talking about it, Karin said as bluntly as possible. Before Ayame could voice her disapproval, the sound of the Shiba mansion opening caught their attention. Walking into the massive building was none other than Isshin. Karin's eyes widened considerably. You're back. Karin, we need to talk, her father stated seriously. The man quickly noticed Ayame. I don't know who she is, but she needs to leave. I guess that's my cue to leave then, Ayame concluded as she walked past Isshin. The white-haired girl couldn't help but feel intimidated by Isshin's demeanor. The man seemed beyond aggravated. Ayame looked back at them one last time before leaving. She said her brother's name was Ichigo. After Ayame was gone, Isshin stared at Karin sadly. About your brother's death, Karin. I know what really happened. Ichigo is a hollow now. He killed my sensei right in front of the Shinigami Academy, Karin stated before Isshin got a chance to speak. The man's eyes widened. Why, you know then? I don't know what to say. There's not much to say. Ichigo is a hollow, and we're Shinigami. I knew White was Ichigo for a while now. I confronted him and tried to fight him at the academy when he was after that lieutenant. He didn't even fight back. He said I belonged in Karakura town living a normal life. Maybe he was right, Karin sulked. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, Karin, I'm sorry for what happened to your brother. All of this is my fault. Had I realized sooner, had I done something to stop this, Isshin apologized sadly. Karin shrugged. It's not your fault, that is just how things are now. I want to go home, Dad, and see Yuzu. Has she been all right? Ichigo asked about her. He did, Isshin said disbelievingly. Yeah, he asked me if Yuzu was a Shinigami like us. Thank heaven she isn't. How has she been? Can we go and see her? Karin asked hopefully. You can't, she's missing, Isshin said looking away. Karin's eyes widened. What? Is she okay? Who took her? What happened? I don't know, but I have a guy looking into it. I'm not really sure how to tell you this, Karin, but Yuzu knows everything. She's a Quincy too, just like your mother, the man replied. The raven-haired teen was glad she was sitting down, because that bit of news hit her hard. Karin gritted her teeth. How though? She knew. According to Rukin Ishida, Yuzu knows where Shinigami. I don't know if she knows about Ichigo, and for heaven's sake I hope she never finds out. It would destroy her, Isshin said distantly. Karin glared at her father. It's not like Yuzu is the only one who loves Ichigo, Dad. How do you think I'm feeling right now? My own brother wants to kill us all. Why? Can't we help him? Can't Akanso do something? Why is he so powerful and angry? I don't know, but things can't be allowed to go on like this. Ichigo needs to be stopped. You saw what he did to the Seraiti, that's only a fraction of what he's capable of. Your brother possesses the powers of Hollow, Shinigami, and Quincy. If he ever realizes it, then he'll be impossible to defeat, Isshin sighed. First Ichigo, and now Yuzu is missing. Damn it, I don't know what to do. I want to leave this place, but now we can't, can we? Karin said uncertainly as tears streamed down her face. Isshin embraced her in a hug and frowned. Stay strong, Karin, we'll find Yuzu and make things right. As for Ichigo, we'll figure something out. Squad 12 Research Lab. Soifin crossed her arms impatiently as she glared at Mayuri. So what is this thing missing in order to work? You've been working on it for how long now? Hey, Urahara, how's about you do something useful and figure out what's wrong with his machine? Urahara, who was standing nearby, quickly jumped into the conversation. Ah, well, Mayuri's a bit of an amateur at this. I'll have this Garganta device up and running here shortly. How's the cloak fitting, by the way? Soifin looked over the unusual cloak device that Urahara had give her to wear and shrugged. It's hideous, but if you're right about it working, then it'll be good enough for this mission. Ah, it's not that bad looking, but it's not really built for your slender physique. If you want I can make you a custom, tight-fitting one. Urahara suggested. Before he could continue, Soifin interrupted him. It's fine. How much longer is this going to take? Just a few more minutes here. Are you in some kind of hurry to leave? Urahara asked as he continued with his adjustments to Mayuri's machine. Soifin scoffed at him. What, are you kidding me? Of course I am. The longer I wait, the more dangerous this mission becomes. All right, sheesh. And done, Urahara stated as he corrected the Garganta device, causing it to open. Mayuri leered at Urahara as hatefully as possible. It would seem your alterations were correct, Mayuri Kuretsuchi said bitterly between his teeth. He quickly turned to Nemu and muttered a few insults to her. Soifin looked at the Garganta doubtfully. Quick question, how will I be able to return? You didn't think of that before volunteering. Are you stupid or something? Mayuri shook his head laughing. The ninja captain bit her tongue as she ignored the man and stared at Urahara for some kind of solution. Kazuki smiled knowingly as he placed a strange device over her wrist. That device will signal this machine to open a Garganta from anywhere in Hueco Mundo to here. Be careful where you use it though. You don't want hollows pouring into the lab now, do ya? Mayuri muttered more insults under his breath at Urahara. Shouldn't you be on your way now? I can handle this from here, it is my machine after all. Oh sure, make sure you keep the power flowing in case she needs to make a quick escape, Urahara waved before taking his leave. After he was gone, Mayuri hissed angrily, I loathe that man. Is it safe to go in? Soifin asked. Mayuri sighed heavily. Yes, you will just have to manifest a walkway with your own spiritual energy. It should be quite simple. I will keep power running, and will monitor the machine until your return. Feel free to pick up some specimens before coming back, I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see what I can do, the woman replied callously. Reluctantly, Soifin entered the Garganta and turned back to look at Mayuri before it closed. If I don't come back in a week, then I'm probably dead. If so, then you need to turn this thing off. Obviously, do you forget that I am the scientist here and you're the spy? Mayuri said condescendingly right as the Garganta closed behind her. Facing forward, Soifin formed a path through the Garganta. I'll prove the Captain Commander wrong, we're not all feeble. I'll do my part for this war, the woman thought stalwartly. X-Seraiti, outside Squad 12. As Kazuki Urahara made his way down the street, a familiar flash landed in front of him, revealing none other than Yoruichi. The woman stared at him curiously. Hey Kazuki, care to explain what's going on right now? Isshin sort of filled me in, but what happened with the Captain Commander? I heard the Vizards were reinstated. Ah yes, they were. I'm sure quite a few people will recognize you. Me, you, and Isshin will have special captain status. Though since Soifin just left for Hueco Mundo, they might stick you back in Squad 2 until she gets back. Soifin went to Hueco Mundo. Why? Yoruichi said disbelievingly. Kazuki shrugged. Ah, you know how she is. The Captain Commander pretty much said the younger captains were useless and she got all offended and volunteered for a reconnaissance mission. Yoruichi's eyes widened. How can you sound so casual about it? She'll die if they discover her. Hey, relax, I wouldn't send her off without a few lifelines. She's got a Reiatsu concealing cloak and a few gadgets of mine. She'll be okay, Urahara reassured the woman. Yoruichi crossed her arms and sighed. I need to go after her. Why didn't you wait for me to get here? That's probably not a good idea. She hasn't seen you in over a century. I'll bet she's still pissed off. You might want to wait for her to come back. Besides, I'm going to need your help coming up with a plan to deal with Ichigo, Urahara stated. The dark-skinned woman looked down sadly. I guess it can't be helped, but what could I possibly do to help you with Isshin's son? Well, this may sound strange, but I need you to find a way to lure Ichigo to the world of the living, Urahara said slowly. Yoruichi rose a brow. What? Why? Is there a particular reason you want me to do it? Yes, actually, you're probably the only person fast enough to outrun him. I'll explain it to you later. I've been working on a plan, Urahara trailed off. The woman frowned at her longtime friend. Kazuki, I have a question and please be serious when you answer me. Did you know what was going on with Isshin's daughter? The Quincy one I mean. Urahara nodded. Yeah, I figured she was up to something the moment I saw her with Ishida. I would have made an issue of it, but I figured she was in good hands with Rukin. Well, apparently she got kidnapped, or recruited, I don't know. But Isshin's really pissed at you right now. You might want to work that out with him when you get the chance, Yoruichi suggested. Kazuki seemed slightly alarmed. Recruited? That's not good, we should probably go find Isshin right away. Hueco Mundo, X. Soifin growled in annoyance as she traversed the endless desert of Hueco Mundo at high speed. She made sure to stay low to the ground and had her eyes trained to detect any possible hollow. Though much to her dissatisfaction, Hueco Mundo was very empty and difficult to conceal oneself. She had no way of knowing how long had passed during the long, high-speed trek through the desert, but she eventually noticed a tremendous building in the distance. The Squad 2 captain squinted hard as she tried to get a closer look at it. What the hell is that? I didn't know there were buildings here. The woman closed in on it, but appeared to get no closer despite how fast she ran. After what literally felt like hours, Soifin was within closer range. She couldn't help but wonder how large the building actually was. Is this some kind of palace? I'll bet it's the size of a city. The wind seemed to pick up all of a sudden, quickly alarming her to an approaching power source. Soifin swiftly dove down and buried herself as best she could in the sand near a rock formation. She carefully looked up and saw several Arrancars running her way. They appeared to be looking for something, but got distracted as one of them spoke up. Ah damn, where did Ichigo run off to? I wanted to ask him about training. The hollow that spoke had black pigtails and a somewhat revealing white outfit. It consisted of a short white miniskirt, and a stomach-exposing top that barely covered the chest. Soifin couldn't help but find it slutty as she noticed the long black boots worn with it. Are they Arrancars? Soifin wondered as she quieted her breathing and opened her ears. The other two were dressed less provocatively, but somewhat similar with white hakama pants. Both of their tops revealed a good amount of cleavage and showed the skin of their oblique curves. Hollows wearing white, they're going all out to oppose us, aren't they? Soifin thought distastefully. The blonde Arrancar girl shook her head and sighed. I thought Ichigo was with Aizen. I could have sworn they went this way. Soifun wasn't sure she heard the comment right, Ichigo and Isshin. I wonder where they are. Spying on them would be the most ideal use of my time here. Get a grip, Lolly, we can't always depend on him for everything. Besides, wouldn't Ichigo be more impressed if we improved without his help? The third Arrancar replied. The one with the black pigtails crossed her arms. Apache, that's not the point. Training with Ichigo has always been our thing. Now everyone's trying to hog him. Even the Shinigami won't leave him alone. I don't mind him being around Isshin, but what's with all the other Arrancars wanting to spend so much time with Ichigo all of a sudden? What's that all about? Like that stupid Lilinet girl or Harabelle's followers? Apache asked. Mainoli frowned. I don't know, but it's annoying. Between them and that Nalil, there's too many people trying to earn his favor. We've been following him the longest, but now it's like we're not even allowed near him. I mean, does Nell really have the most favor with Ichigo right now? He did hug her back, plus he defended her to Grimmjow. There's something going on there. Screw Nell, can you believe the way she was trying to get Ichigo's attention? I mean hugging him, who does something like that? She thinks she's the top bitch around here and can just waltz right in and interrupt our time with Ichigo. Lolly spat. Mainoli shrugged. She certainly proved her point. Between her looks and actions, she'll be hard to outdo. Her looks? You think she looks good? Apache asked. Mainoli nodded somewhat shamefully. I'd hate to admit it, but yeah, not to mention Ichigo seems to have some kind of bond with her. I don't like the idea of that. Me neither. It makes my blood boil watching all these other Arrancars fawn over Ichigo. Nell better watch her back. She might be stronger than us, but I'm not about to let her wrap Ichigo around her finger, Lolly announced. Besides Nalil, now it seems even Harabelle's followers are moving in. Can you believe that damn Mila Rose? She thinks just because she's got a big chest that Ichigo will like her. Apache growled. I wonder what Ichigo would have said about who was the prettiest. Mainoli wondered. Are these really hollows? They're acting like a bunch of jealous, gossiping school girls. Though based on how they're dressed, maybe that's not far off, Soifun thought incredulously. Apache sighed heavily. He probably would have said Harabelle, she's the best looking in my opinion. We're doomed to be sidelined forever if she starts vying for Ichigo's favor. She's the strongest female in Hueco Mundo. At least she's tolerable. Besides, Harabelle doesn't really seem as annoying as some of these other bitches around here. I respect her for giving everyone space, Lolly added. Do either of you know what the deal with Ichigo and Ulquiorra is? I mean, like, why's Ulquiorra always around him? I tried to visit Ichigo's room while he was asleep, and Ulquiorra was there. He just shooed me away like I was a pest. Who is he to keep me from Ichigo? Apache said in annoyance. Why would you need to be in Ichigo's room in the first place? Lolly asked threateningly. Apache crossed her arms. He's my master, I can visit him whenever I want. He's our master. Don't be selfish, Apache, Mainoli protested. Who knows, maybe Ulquiorra just wants to make sure those Shinigami don't try anything stupid. I mean, I feel kinda better knowing that Ulquiorra is guarding Ichigo when we're not around, Lolly stated. Why would Ichigo need to be guarded? You really think any of those Shinigami would be stupid enough to attack him? All I'm saying is that it's weird. Apache shook her head. It's not weirder than us wanting to be around Ichigo. Besides, didn't Ichigo meet Ulquiorra as a Vasto Lord? The guy didn't have a mouth for a long time, he probably just likes Ichigo's company. Mainoli cut in. Apache looked away jealously. Well, good for him, but so do I. So what you're saying is you don't like Ulquiorra being around Ichigo? Mainoli asked. Apache glared at her. No. It's not like that. I mean, I don't have a problem with Ulquiorra. It's just, well, we haven't had any alone time with Ichigo ever since all of this happened. I miss it when Ichigo would just talk and hang out with us. Why don't we have a special bond with him? Alone time. Special bond. Just what the hell are these hollows talking about? Soifun wondered, slightly shocked by the context of the statement. I didn't realize hollows were capable of such behavior. These three must be White's servants, I'd wager. It's strange, they seem to have some kind of weird affection for him. This is bizarre behavior for hollows. Do all Arrancars act this human? Apache sighed as she looked into the distance. I don't know about you too, but I feel strange whenever I'm around Ichigo. Ever since I got this body, I don't know. I just feel different whenever he's not around. Different? What do you mean? Mainoli asked. Apache frowned. I don't know, empty I guess. It's hard to explain. Trust me, if anyone gets it, we do. Lolly nodded in understanding. Mainoli seemed deep in thought. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. It hardly seems fair that we're not as close to Ichigo as we thought. Soifun watched their conversation with an unusual curiosity. I didn't know hollows were capable of romantic feelings. Though, if Arrancars are capable of emotional attachments, then it may be a useful way to exploit them in war. Still, I've heard enough out of these three. The captain carefully snuck past the three Arrancars as she made her way closer towards Las Noches. The stealth force leader made considerable progress in short time as she closed in on the outer wall of the palace. Looking up at it, Soifun gasped, this building must be larger than the Seraiti. How the hell am I supposed to find anything in here? Her mental question was quickly answered as a patrol of Arrancars came walking by. They spoke freely, much to her approval. King White's something else. How could he just let those Shinigami walk around Las Noches like nothing? One of them asked. The other shrugged. Beats me, but I'm not about to question anything he does. White's got every former Vasto Lord eating out of the palm of his hand. That kind of supremacy demands respect. Obviously, I would never doubt White's right to rule, but I just don't understand why he allowed Shinigami captains to join us. Doesn't he despise Shinigami? One of the Arrancars asked. Well, that Izangai did tell him about the Hogyoku. I mean, would you have turned down an offer like that if you were in his position? He turned us all into Arrancars too. Surely you can't deny the benefit of it. Our High King has a great vision, the other Arrancar replied admirably. Soifun didn't get to hear the rest of their conversation as they were now out of range. She cautiously bolted down the massive hallway-like entrance of Las Noches and dove behind corners trying to find a good place to watch enemy activity. She did this for quite a while and eventually found herself much deeper in the palace. Landing behind a dark pillar in a massive room, she briefly looked around to make sure nobody was coming. Much to her curiosity, she spotted a busty, blonde woman with revealing white attire walking down the massive chamber. The blonde woman had the lower half of her face covered, but upon closer inspection, Soifun spotted a mask fragment underneath the high collar. To her sides were two other Arrancars that were noticeably female. One had olive, shoulder-length hair and a strange flowing dress, whilst the other was dressed in a provocative Amazonian manner. The raven-haired captain carefully held her breath as Haribel stopped in her tracks. The blonde looked around the room curiously. Soifun immediately felt worried as the Arrancar's green eyes shifted in the general vicinity of her hiding spot. Damn, can she sense me? That damned Urahara better have been right about this cloak. Otherwise I'm screwed, Soifun thought concerned. Luckily Haribel didn't seem to notice her as the blonde looked forward again. Two other Arrancars quickly voiced their confusion. Lady Haribel, what is it? Why did you stop? The skimpily dressed one asked. The blonde Arrancar shrugged. It's nothing, I just thought I heard something. You're clearly tired, mistress. Perhaps you should get some rest. The other suggested. Haribel shook her head. No, I need to train for this war. White is counting on the Espada to do their part. Besides, we will need more power if we're to stand a chance against every Shinigami captain and their Bankei. Where did Ichigo even go? Mila Rose asked curiously. Likely to train. I imagine all of the Espada are doing the same, Haribel answered. Espada, what is that? Soifun wondered, perplexed, as the three Arrancars continued on their way. She stared at Haribel curiously and saw a 3 engraved into the back of the Arrancar's hands. So she's Haribel. That trio from earlier wasn't kidding. She's beautiful for a hollow. I wonder what that 3 on her hands is though. Moving further along, Soifun traversed deeper and deeper into Las Noches. Along the way she managed to pick up a decent amount of passing gossip from the lesser Arrancars. Many of them seemed to be talking about the Espada. From the bits of information she was able to gather, Soifun learned that the Espada were the 10 strongest Arrancars and the official leaders of Hueco Mundo. She also confirmed the information from earlier that the building they were in was indeed known as Las Noches. She carefully snuck around and did her best to locate any shred of news on where Ichigo and Isshin were. After a good amount of espionage, she learned that Ichigo and Isshin were far out in Hueco Mundo so that they wouldn't damage Las Noches with their training. She spent the next several hours sneaking out of the palace and back outside. The captain nervously sprinted through the open sand dunes as she distanced herself from Las Noches. Part of her felt paranoid that she would be spotted, but thankfully the ugly cloak provided by Urahara matched the color of the sands, making her less noticeable. Where the hell are they anyways? You'd think I would be able to sense a hollow as strong as white, Soifan thought, annoyed. However, much to her surprise, she caught a lucky break as a colossal surge of red power lit up the horizon. Soifan's eyes widened. That looks like White's Cerro, maybe they're over there. Silburn, Wandenreich. The past day had been quite an ordeal for Yuzu. The training she received from Bazbi was vastly different than what she learned from Ryu and his father. Instead of typical speed training and marksmanship training, Bazbi seemed intent on teaching her how to fight in actual combat. They had spent the majority of the past day training until she could no longer go on. Yuzu collapsed from exhaustion as she finished her last training battle with Bazbi. Before she could hit the ground, the Mohawk Quincy caught her and helped Yuzu to her feet. He looked down at her somewhat stoically. Don't fall over on me yet, we're not done training for another few hours. The teenager panted heavily as she held onto Bazbi, trying to keep her balance. That's easy for you to say, I'm exhausted. Come on, absorb the nearby reishi, revitalize your stamina. If you don't want to be a target around here, then you have to stay strong, Bazbi reassured her. The girl reluctantly let go of him as she wobbled on her feet, barely maintaining balance. He smiled slightly as a faint blue glow gathered around her body, slowly replenishing her energy. Afterwards, Yuzu took a deep breath and stared at Bazbi uncertainly. Bazbi-sama, what's next? Don't call me Sama or whatever the hell that shit is, it's just Bazbi. Let me think. We did target practice, you're pretty good at that. We did reishi manipulation, check. And we sparred for a few hours. I guess the next order of business is teaching you about blood, Bazbi replied. Bazbi, do you mind if I ask you some stuff? Yuzu asked carefully. The man gave her a careless shrug. Go ahead, Kurosaki, I'm sure you're probably confused about a lot of stuff still. We haven't talked much since training started, have we? Why did you help me? What do you get out of training somebody like me? Who am I to you? Yuzu wondered. The hot-headed Quincy looked at her as if offended. You think I would just let some innocent, naive teenage girl wander around here without a clue? The moment I saw Candace moving in on you, I knew what was up. I'll tell ya, this place changes people. Nobody who enters the Wandenreich ever leaves the same person they once were. This place is full of sickos who would love nothing more than to take advantage of you. What would Bambietta have done to me? Yuzu questioned, worried. Bazbi shook his head. Hell if I know, she's a sick bitch. Though I'm pretty sure you caught onto that fairly quickly. That whole female gang of hers are a bunch of sadistic, psychopathic whackjobs. Bambietta likes to kill and torture people for fun. Giselle's a weird freak who gets off on controlling and manipulating others. Menina's seems stupid, but she's probably one of the smartest in their group. She's hard to understand. Liltato, on the other hand, is the only halfway decent Sternritter in their gang. She's the smartest and the least annoying. What about Candace? Yuzu wondered. You didn't mention her. Candace is probably worse than Bambietta and Giselle combined, though she's a lot better at hiding it. Don't trust her, Bazbi warned. Yuzu shook her head, confused. How is she worse? She brought you here, didn't she? Don't let her, big sister, act fool you. Candace is a lot like Bambietta but with Giselle's innocent act sprinkled on top. You should try and ask her personal questions tomorrow and see how she reacts. It'll prove my point. Also, don't listen to the stupid bullshit their group likes to spout off, Bazbi replied as he looked up at the sky, disgusted by the thought of Bambietta's clique. Bambietta and Giselle said some weird things about Ichigo. Yuzu trailed off somewhat horrified. I wouldn't doubt it, they're a bunch of crazy whores. Trust me when I say that you're better off not associating with them, Bazbi explained. A third voice quickly interrupted their conversation. What's that about me being a whore? Baz B immediately tensed up as he noticed Liltato standing there. The short blonde Quincy stared at him somewhat curiously. I didn't realize you thought so highly of me, Baz B. Am I really your favorite person out of Bambietta's gang? When the fuck did you get here? Get lost, Baz B said threateningly. Liltato rolled her eyes at Baz B's demeanor. Chill out, will you? You're not fooling me with that tough guy act. The man reluctantly calmed down as he gave her a curious stare. So what do you want? I just wanted to apologize to Yuzu on Bambietta and Giselle's behalf. What they did was uncalled for. I think they just get off on messing with innocent people. For the record, I wouldn't have let them do anything to you. Even without Hashwolf's orders, Liltato stated. Yuzu seemed surprised by the short blonde's gesture. Thank you then. Speaking of Jugo, where is he right now? Did he tell Yawatch know about the Hollow King yet? Baz B asked curiously. Liltato shrugged. I think Yawatch is sleeping right now. Hashwolf is watching his chamber. Yawatch Sama sleeps. Yuzu couldn't help but ask. Somehow the idea of the creepy, Quincy leader sleeping seemed impossible to her due to the man's otherworldly aura. So how's your training been going with, Yuzu? Liltato changed the subject. Baz B looked at the girl somewhat uncertainly. Hard to say for sure. She's a good marksman, but is lacking in combat experience. I was about to teach her blood. Interesting, I can help with that if you want, Liltato suggested. Baz B crossed his arms. What's the big idea hanging out with me all of a sudden? We're working here, Liltato. I won't get in your way, dude, I'm not Candace. Plus, I figure you're not really good at this teaching thing, are you? The blonde asked. Baz B looked at Yuzu for confirmation as to whether or not he was teaching her properly. The Kurosaki teen smiled reassuringly. Baz B is very helpful, he's tough, but patient. You're a lot like Ichigo. Both Sternritters stared at her surprised by the remark. Baz B cocked his head. I'm like your brother. No wonder she ran behind you the first chance she got, Liltato muttered. Bambietta might not have been far off. What do you mean? Yuzu asked. Who cares what she means, let's get back to training. All right now, I'm going to teach you about blood, Kurosaki. It's a very useful Quincy ability that can very well save your life. Blood comes in two varieties. There's blood venae and blood artery. The former is a purely defensive ability and the other offensive, Baz B explained. How does one use this ability? Yuzu asked interested. Liltato answered before Baz B got the chance. Pure-blooded Quincies can naturally do it, but others can acquire it through training. Since you're not pure-blooded, it may take some training for you to get the hang of it. To start, you focus reishi into your blood vessels like so. Yuzu watched with amazement as a blue grid-like pattern covered Liltato's arm. Baz B pointed a finger at the blonde Loli's arm, burner finger 1. A fiery stream of molten fire in the shape of a narrow beam shot towards Liltato's arm. The blonde quickly jerked her hand out of its path after a few seconds of contact. Ow. Damn, Baz B, you can warn me next time you want to demonstrate. Your arm, it's okay. Yuzu noticed as the blue grid-like pattern receded, revealing no fire damage to Liltato's arm. The blonde rubbed her forearm annoyed. For now, I guess. How did you do that just now? That burner finger attack looks powerful, Yuzu said admirably. Before Baz B could take pride in his ability, Liltato shook her head. It's his main ability. All Sternritters have specialized powers and a letter called a shrift. Baz B's letter is H for the heat. You won't be able to replicate his powers. Really, all Sternritters have special letters and powers. What are yours, Liltato? Yuzu couldn't help but ask. The blonde traded a brief look with Baz B before answering. I'm G for the glutton, I can eat things many times my size. I don't understand, Yuzu said uncertainly. Liltato crossed her arms as she leaned against the wall. Hopefully you never have to, it's less than pretty. What about the others then? What can all of them do? The teenager's curiosity continued. Bambietta is E for the explode. She can blow things up with specialized reishi bombs. Menina's is P for the power. She's got superhuman strength and fortitude. Candace is T for the thunderbolt. As you can imagine, her powers are mostly lightning-based. Giselle is Z for the zombie. I'm pretty sure that is self-explanatory. As for some of the others, I'm sure you'll figure it all out eventually. Though it's probably worth knowing that Hashwalth is B for balance and you watch as A for the almighty, Liltato concluded. Sternritter's sound very powerful. Yuzu noted, somewhat intimidated by the idea of Bambietta blowing things up and Giselle creepily walking towards her as a zombie. Well, you should probably get some sleep, Yuzu, Liltato suggested as she lightly pushed Yuzu along. Bazb and I need to talk. Yuzu looked at the man as if waiting on his permission. He simply waved her off. Head straight to your room, and don't talk to anyone. Candace will probably come wake you up tomorrow. Next time we'll work on teaching you more about blood. Oh okay, thanks again, Bazb, Yuzu waved before skittishly making her way back inside of the ice palace. After she was gone, Liltato turned back and stared at Bazb. It might not be a good idea to get too attached to her. Bazb, there's no telling what you watch has planned for Yuzu. I ain't getting attached, I'm just giving her a fighting chance. You know as well as I do, that she won't last another week unless she toughens up, he replied. Liltato sighed, I know you're not doing this out of the kindness of your heart. So what, you have something you want to say to me? Bazb asked threateningly. The blonde lowly crossed her arms. Most people around here might be stupid, but I'm certainly not. You should tread lightly, Bazb, before something bad happens. If something bad did happen, where would you be? He asked curiously. The blonde shrugged, that depends on a lot of factors, I will always make the logical choice. Good to know, the man chuckled. Before their conversation could continue, a third figure landed nearby. Both Quincy's looked up surprised to see somebody they were not expecting. Bazb cocked his head confused. Giselle. Ah, Bazzy-kun, what are you and Lil Chan doing out here? Giselle asked in an overly cutesy way. Liltato and I just happened to run into each other. I was just leaving, actually. See y'all later bitches, he replied callously. Giselle giggled at his remark. Haha, don't leave on my account, Bazzy-kun, we never get to hang out together. Hopefully we never will. Also don't call me Bazzy-kun, it's Bazb. I don't go around calling you Gigi like one of your little girlfriends, the man scoffed at her. Giselle gave him a playful grin. We could be friends, but you're always so scary and mean. What did I ever do to you? Or didn't do? Is there anything I can do to build our friendship? Liltato face-palmed at the display, and Bazb simply rolled his eyes. He rubbed a hand through his mohawk before replying, stop playing innocent, Giselle, you're not fooling me with this shit. You know damn well why I hate your guts. Hate is such a strong word, you really have to care about something in order to hate it, Giselle stated. Her eyes lit up in surprise upon saying it. That must mean, you actually like me then. Ha, Bazzy-kun, likes me. Excuse me, while I go kill myself, the man grunted as he pushed past Giselle and made his way back into the Silburn. After he was gone, Liltato shook her head at Giselle. You really like getting under people's skin, don't you? I didn't know you and Bazzy-kun were on good terms, Giselle said, slightly more serious now. Liltato glared at Giselle seriously. We're not, you didn't see anything. Got that? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Giselle replied. What are you doing out here, anyway, Giselle? Liltato asked carefully. The zombie Quincy brought a finger to her lip and looked up with an oblivious dumb smile on her face. Let me think. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell you something. What's that? The blonde took a step back as if she anticipated what was about to happen. Giselle smiled with enthusiasm. I am going to train Yuzu. What? Liltato thought, bewildered as she stared dumbfounded. The lowly gave the dark-haired Quincy a questioning gaze. Who authorized that, and why? Right as the blonde let her guard down, Giselle leaned in close and whispered in her ear. I did. You won't tell anyone, will you? A secret for a secret. Or maybe Bambietta would like to know about you and Bazb hanging out together. Do whatever you want. Just keep your mouth shut, Liltato sighed. It's not really my problem anyways. Giselle grinned happily as she hugged the blonde Sternritter. Ah, you're the best, Liltato. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.